Ma'am's law?
Yes, ma'am's law. It's all the rules for running the plantation. We weren't allowed to read it. It's just for ma'am and the family.
Only for ma'am and the family, Grace thought. Certainly no more. And there on ma'am's bed, skimming through the old book well filled with bizarre and vicious regulations, she came upon a page that looked strangely familiar. A table with numbers from 1 to 7. Somewhere Grace had seen something similar for sure. Ma'am's law revealed it all. The Manderlay plantation, with its glamorous front mansion and pitiful rear where the slaves had their quarters, had been kept in an iron grip by these very numbers. They represented the psychological division of the Manderlay slaves. Sammy was a Group 5, a clowning nigger. The formidable Victoria was, of course, a number 4, a hidden nigger. No wonder her husband, Bert, had found it necessary to accept a helping hand, even if it was another colour from his own. Wilma and Mark were loser niggers. Willem was a 2, a talking nigger. Flora was a weeping nigger, etc., etc. There were pleasing niggers and crazy niggers by the dozen. The final category, number 1, proudy niggers, consisted nowadays of Timothy, as expected, who was of course not there, and Elizabeth. No, it said 7, not 1. She was a pleasing nigger, also known as a chameleon, a person of the kind who could transform herself into exactly the type the beholder wanted to see. This was how the slave system had been kept alive for so long at Manderlay. Bondage, even through psychology.
Bondage, even through psychology. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade Justice in for another program, hopefully to share constructive information on racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. That clip, Manderlay, 2005. I'm glad it was a black female in the Netherlands reminded me about that film. I had forgotten about it. It came out years ago. I don't think I've seen that film in about 4 years, and it's incredible film. I would highly encourage, I think, non-white people, if you have an understanding of white supremacy, you will appreciate that film. We will have one more sound clip coming up later in the program from that film. But the clip that you just heard, Ma'am's Law, the code book for organizing the system of white supremacy on the Manderlay plantation, psychological slavery, white supremacy. White people have an extensive code for how they have maintained and refined their system. We'll be talking about how black people can develop our own code to work against what they have been doing to us and to put them out of business as soon as possible. Our guest for today's program, longtime investor, she, I think, over a year now, sharing her time, expertise, dropping through to share her views on racism, white supremacy. Always a pleasure to have her on the program. I know tons of folks really enjoy hearing from her and have picked up the book, shared it with other people. The books that are out thus far: Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. Book number 2, Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. You can get more information at their website, TrojanHorse1.com. The web address, one more time, TrojanHorse1.com. horse1.com. As I said, always a pleasure to have her on the program to share constructive information. Looking forward to a codified discussion. Joining us live, Pam. Pam, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Gus.
Good evening. Outstanding to hear from you as usual. How are you doing?
As well as can be expected.
Understood.
Yeah, glad to be here, though.
For sure. I guess before we get started, I'm looking at the volume. Now it looks like there's like a significant difference between my volume and your volume. Say something again just so I can check your volume level.
Good evening. I'll try to talk a little louder. Is that any better?
Yes, that is better.
Okay, I'll try to be conscious of my volume because I think I might be talking lower for some reason.
Nice and loud. I think white people, white people are trying to drown you out. They don't want your message to get out, so you got to speak up nice and loud so you can overpower racist woman and racist man.
Okay. Just let me know if you do see a drop. I'll try to be conscious of it though.
Will do. I'll keep my eye on the volume bar, and folks out who are listening, if you are having some difficulties hearing, if the audio is not clear, if we need to speak up or what have you, let us know. I'll open up a few of the chat lines so you can use your keyboard to type a message and let us know if the volume is not up to par. With that said, anything you want to share before we get started, Pam?
Well, just some ideas that when we discuss having the show about the conduct codes and how important the conduct codes are to maintain white supremacy, the white conduct codes. And so what I was going to say to the listeners, and I'll repeat it later, is it's good if we could all contribute. Anyone that has any ideas about a black conduct code, anything they think should be in the black conduct code, you can shoot it to me, shoot it to Gus. So it's just something to think about, as the show goes on. But other than that, that's all I had to say to start with.
Right on. Pam's idea for this program in terms of coming up with suggestions, techniques, really a code, things black people can do in all areas of people activity, all 9 areas. Suggestions, strategies, things that we can be doing to erode white people's system of terrorism worldwide. I think very important making sure that non-white people have an understanding that this system did not just, come into place overnight. White people have refined, maintained extensive codes around thought, speech, and action with regards to what they're going to be doing to make sure that they maintain domination over non-white people. And if you wanted to share some of your thoughts on the code white people have put in place, your observations, studies around their code.
Okay. In book number 3, the one that we're working on now, and that's the interracial con game, we thought it was important before we talk about the interracial relationships, the tragic relationships, is to kind of help black people get out of denial about what's happening, that white people are very conscious of what they do, that white people do what they do very deliberately, and that I think it's helpful if you understand that they're not ignorant of what they're doing, they're not innocent about what they're doing. That can help to build the argument later on for why you shouldn't be sleeping with people who are consciously aware of mistreating you, who are consciously aware of other people mistreating you, who are mistreating you deliberately. Those are people you should have no business in the bed with. So what we did was we thought about some of the things that we had heard on cows and some of the things, and one of the ideas we had was to just go ahead and name a code. Just give the code a name so it would be easy to talk about. So we called it the Universal United White Supremacist Conduct Code, the UUWSCC. And so what we did in book number 3 was early on we started to talk about it after we put down what we thought racism, white supremacy was. We started with pretty much with that. And a universal united white supremacist conduct code simply means that universal means including all, a whole or a whole collectively. United means being in agreement, joined together. And the conduct code is a set of rules that outlines the responsibilities for an individual in that group. So that seemed like that fit pretty much what we felt white people were doing collectively. And that is they seemed to be on the same page no matter where they were on the planet, no matter what their age is, no matter what their income and educational level. They all seem to be kind of united in this understanding that white means one thing and non-white means another thing. So we have the Universal United White Supremacist Conduct Code, and we broke it down into 4 parts. And the first part was the don't snitch on other white people. That's the part 1. The second part is white privileges, how white people benefit from being white and how white people make sure that white people benefit from being white. The third part was how they use code words to create the illusion of inferiority in non-white people, like, for example, calling white people first world, calling non-white people third world. Well, I mean, what is the purpose of that except to give the appearance of inferiority to people who are not white? The fourth part is what we call the Universal Conduct Code for white males in a white supremacy system. So because this is a male-dominated system, it's really important that white males follow a very rigid conduct code. They're allowed to bend it, but they better not break it. So we put those 4 things together and called it the Universal United White Supremacist Conduct Code. So, explaining that and breaking it down and giving examples. A lot of the examples came from your show, Gus, listening to the conversations between you and Dr. Barbara Trepanier. Trepanier, Dr. Trepanier. And also listening to Miss Winfrey, Farrell Winfrey. And so we analyzed some of the conversations and decided that even while these people claim to be anti-racist, to some degree, especially Dr. Trepanier, she was very reluctant to snitch on other white people. So that's pretty much where the book really goes into that pretty thoroughly. And, the whole thing about the conduct code is it works. It works very well for white people, and it works very well against their victims. So to me, the logical step would be to have our own conduct code, at least to start to develop one, so that we can protect ourselves from white supremacy and to, help eliminate it. So that's where the idea for the conduct code came from, was listening to some of your shows and, just watching the way white people function in general. And it's kind of almost like it's so deeply ingrained, it's genetic. I mean, they seem to know what they're supposed to do, even as children.
Is that, I want to make sure I repeat that, UUWSCC. Is it Universal United or United? Okay.
I'm sorry, Universal United White Supremacist Conduct Code.
Got it. Okay. And I guess just for our listeners, in case there are folks out there who maybe they're newer listeners or they're still kind of getting it together in terms of what racism, white supremacy is and how it works, did you have that understanding initially that white people have an extensive set of guidelines about what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to say, what they are supposed to not do or not say, that helps them all function to maintain this system? Did you have that understanding initially?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, before I listened to Mr. Fuller, I didn't have an understanding whatsoever. I just knew that I had my particular feelings about white people, whether or not I could trust them, but I had no real understanding. I had very little understanding of the white supremacy system, and I definitely didn't know about a code. And I would say probably me understanding that there was a code really came about fairly recently too. And a lot of it had to do with listening to the white people come on your program and listen to how they would skirt around snitching on other white people. And I think that helped me a lot. They just didn't want to tell. They didn't want to break the code of silence.
That's a big one that I've seen. Again, repetition. I mean, if you just want a real simple about looking for pattern, repetition. That's all you're looking for. Repetition. In a world, I have been told, in a universe of infinite possibilities, anytime that you see repetition, same thing happening over and over, same thing being said over and over, you should pay attention to that. And I think with white people, you'll see a lot of repetition. I guess, can you point out to our listeners some of the different aspects of the white code that you have observed as you become more informed? I know you said code words, definitely, and not snitching on other white people. Anything else you've observed?
Well, I'll give you an example of something that happened to a relative of mine, one of my nieces who has a white parent. Now, I heard this secondhand. She came home crying one day. She was in first grade, I think. And I guess the class had some kind of dress-up day or something. The girls were dressing up. The girls were dressing up, and I'm not sure what the boys were doing, but I just know that the girls had a dress-up day. And one little white girl in her class, they couldn't have been more than 6 years old, said to her, "Brown girls can't be pretty." Now, where did this little white girl get that from? I don't believe anybody sat her down before she came to school that day and said, "Remember, brown girls can't be pretty." I think that she already was aware of the code, and that code was that white is superior. And like Mr. Fuller said, which we also include in the book, which I think is really interesting when you read what Dr. Welsing and Mr. Fuller say. And what Mr. Fuller says is that the average white person by age 16, they know the rules. They picked it up by osmosis, just being around people and observing and listening and being around the dinner table when political talk is going on. The little white girl and the little white boy who's sitting there, he's 6 years old, but he hears his white grandfather sitting up there talking about that blankety-blank Obama and all the rest of those heathen niggas are ruining the society and on and on and on. He's 6 years old, and by the time he's 15, he's well-schooled, and he hasn't said a word to anybody. By the time he gets ready to go to school, he knows the fundamentals, and by the time he gets to 8th or 9th grade, he's got it down pat. So I think I think we can all, at least I know I can relate to that in having what I would call, I don't even know what you call them, experiences with white children. A lot of times, unless they're very young, the white children have a way of looking at you that lets you know that they know that you're not white. I mean, just in the way that they look at you. Sometimes they look at you kind of like, yeah, of course you look a little different. That's understandable. But it's more than that. I mean, you could look at somebody different, but you shouldn't have a negative reaction unless you've been taught that difference is something negative. I'll give you another example, and that is, and I think this is real common for black young people, children who are in predominantly white school environments. For example, say a white boy that's in high school, it's the code, the conduct code that will stop him from asking a black girl to the prom, even if he likes a black girl. So black boys are frantic to ask the white girls to be their prom date. Why? Because the black male does not have a conduct code. And this explains partly why the black male is confused. He does not act in his own self-interest because he does not know he needs a conduct code. It's the same code that makes a black girl in high school believe that a white boy she likes will ask her to the prom, but she winds up without a date. Why? Because the black female does not have a conduct code. And this partly explains why the black female is so confused. She does not act in her own self-interest because she does not know she needs a conduct code. So I think probably a lot of us can relate to situations where we walked in blind, thinking that this was just a situation, and finding out that there were rules about what white people did and what black people did. We find out on the job. We find out when we're young. We find out when we're out in public. We find out that there's different standards and different restrictions on black people versus white people. Well, that's a conduct code. white people can do X, Y, Z, black people can't. White people don't do X, Y, Z, black people wide open. We're just game for anything. Race doesn't matter. White people don't believe that. If they did, there'd be no white supremacy system. So what I'm saying is their conduct code is so refined, in my opinion, that they could make it appear that they don't have one. But if you're a non-white person and you keep your eyes open long enough and you live long enough, you're going to see they got a code, all right. And they got a code that penalizes you for not being white. So I would just say that in everyday life, if you really observe what you've experienced already, you know that there's a different standard. That's what a different standard really means is there's a conduct code in place. There's privileges that you don't have access to. There's what you would call courtesies that you're not given, that you don't have, that someone doesn't give you. There are all kinds of restrictions, and the reason I think black people in this part of the world are so greatly mistreated is we don't even understand what's going on when we are being mistreated. We think maybe it's that one bad white person, all white people aren't the same and all that. You couldn't have a white supremacy system if the majority of white people were not united in a universal conduct code. You couldn't have a 9% of the world's population controlling 91% of the world's population, and that 9% isn't fully engaged in oppressing that 91%. It can't just be a few white people oppressing 91% of the Earth's population. So I think it's really important that we understand that they have a conduct code, that conduct code is their religion, not Christianity, not Islam, not Baptist, Methodist. Their conduct code is their religion. And that is why they've been so successful, because that conduct code is there, and they learn it at a very early age.
Penalties for not learning it and or deviating from it. Context of white supremacy. My 2 cents that I would just add in, I totally agree. And in fact, I'm reminded of Mr. C.C. Blackman, who was on the program yesterday, and you saying that black people don't have a code. I think what he was saying just yesterday is that black people do not have context. I was giggling the whole time because I was like, this is a pretty massive commercial for the cows, because he said context about 15 times in a 5-minute stand. He said, we don't have context. We don't live in context. You got to live in context. You got to have context code for what's happening on the planet. White people have, that's the major difference right now. White people have that. Black people, non-white people in total, do not. And on this planet, you are without context, code of conduct, man, you are going to be in trouble. Either way, really, if you're a white person or a non-white person, if you don't have a code, you are going to get in trouble with racists. If you don't understand code and how you're supposed to function, white person, you don't understand, you are going to get in trouble with other white people. Black person, you don't understand counter-racist code, you definitely are going to have problems with white people.
Yeah, and just, and I had to do this myself, that word context. I just did a search on Webster, and I thought maybe this would be helpful, even though the definitions aren't really all that great. But it says the interrelated conditions in which something exists or occurs, the environment, the setting. So I guess context would mean the environment in which something happens. You have to be aware of the environment in which it happens. That's what I would think it means, because, like, for example, they give an example. We need to look at this event within the larger context of world history. So I guess putting things in this perspective in that particular environment that you're in, and being aware of the setting of whatever is taking place. What setting? I would say the setting taking place for us is in the system of racism and white supremacy.
Wow. We've been on the air almost 3 years. I think that's the first time that someone gave the definition of context on this program. That's
because I needed it. Because I said I think I understand, but just to be sure, in case somebody asks me,
Hey, I learned. I picked the name for the program. And, I learned something. Interrelated. I mean, it fits beautifully. If there was any ambiguity as for why the name of this program, Context of White Supremacy, man, that you cannot understand racism until you look at how your environment, interrelated, all the things that are happening, all areas of people activity, all of that stuff is related. All of that is working together to produce the end result of white domination. Unfortunately, right now, that is the context in which we live. And again, if you do not understand that, and or you don't have a code of conduct for how you're going to behave, anybody, white or non-white, you are going to be in serious trouble on this planet. But again, this program would not concern with white people, black people. Getting our code together. Before I even push off, I said I was going to try to find some clips or information to evidence that white people have an extraordinary code. In fact, I would assume white people, hands down, white people have set the example for codification with regards to people. Hands down, they got that on lock right now. But that can be changed. And I'm just trying to steal some of the better aspects of their code and incorporate that into what we are doing. I wanted to give a sound clip to evidence white people's codification. One more from Manderlay really quick, and also check in with Pam. If I wanted to be really ugly, I could have given a commercial for tomorrow's program, because white people are so perverted and racist. Danielle McGuire, in her book, apparently white people have codified the rape of black females. There is a portion in the book where she said a black female is raped. It's reported. Black people already know the spot that white people take black females to rape them. That is frightening codification. But I didn't want to be that ugly for today's program, so I'm going to take the clip from Manderlay to evidence white codification. And I mean, they codify all aspects, fine detail. Do this, not this, say this, don't say that. Fine detail. This is what domination looks like. I'm going to set this scene up, and this will be my final word on white people's codification. Then I'll have some strategies, and I'll check in to see if Pam has anything else she wants to flesh out around the white code, the white supremacist code. But this quick sound clip, it's only 3 minutes. The film, Manderlay, 2005. Danny Glover is in it. William Dafoe. Really interesting work. Suspected racist Lars von Trier. That's his name. He wrote and directed this film. The clip that I'm playing right now, you have a white woman who is attempting to free slaves and educate them so that they can function and be happy and be quote-unquote free. This is after slavery has ended. A white man comes on the plantation, and his job, he does diversions and tricks. That's what he does, to entertain people. And he explains why he has come to the Manderlay plantation. So you have a white woman and a white man talking. And the really interesting thing that you'll miss, you won't have the visual aid, I'll give it and then I'll play the clip. This white man, you'll hear in the clip, he tells her, hey, I cheat. Be very clear about what I do. I cheat. I'm not about playing correctly. I'm not about playing by the rules. I cheat. If you look on the side of his vehicle, he has honest in all capital letters and underlined on the side of his vehicle. But the first word out of his mouth, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to make some money, and I cheat. I lie. I mean, I'm a white person. You should already know that. But this is Manderlay 2005. Incredible clip. This is codification. I just want you to keep in mind the white code. We are supposed to be working together, all us white people, whatever our area of expertise, we're supposed to be working together to stomp on non-white people worldwide forever.
See here, my entire enterprise. I must say I've never gained access to Manderlay before. So when I drove by today, I saw the gates were open. I took it as a sign of new times.
What exactly do you do?
I entertain. Party games, card games, and the like. Well, nowadays, mainly the latter.
You play for money.
Oh, but I do more than play. I cheat.
And you have no objections to revealing this business secret of yours?
Oh, some people, but not to you. No, you see, if you and I establish the business relationship I'm anticipating you will be, you happen to know exactly what to expect.
And what can I expect?
80%. Now, you certainly know all the problems that arose when that our beloved New Deal was imposed in '65. Plantation owners had plenty of land, but nobody to work it. So they contracted with the former slaves. But they just didn't have the same hold on the rascals that they had in the old days. Of course, they lent them money, but quite a few of the niggers actually saved up, paid off the debts. So the plantation owners got worried.
Bet they did.
Oh, yes. See, that's where my idea came in. I went from plantation to plantation with the full backing of the plantation owners to entertain the employees. And they were sorely in need of diversion, let me tell you. We just had a little game of cards. And if anyone was close to repaying his debt, I would take the shirt off their back. And I am prepared to offer you that very same service today, man. You are not convinced. Let me give you another token of my profound loyalty. I have here a letter. A man by the name of Stanley. He asked me to smuggle it out. Thought perhaps you'd like to see it before it's mailed.
Listen, Mr. Actor. Let me just say that I have never met a man whom I have instantly despised so wholeheartedly, both for his personality and his occupation.
Does that mean you're turning down my offer?
I never want to see you here again.
All right. Well, I am disappointed. I shall nevertheless bestow upon you my thought for the day. I indulge in word games. I like to give my clients something to laugh or think about when I leave. Best technique for a card shop is dealing from the bottom. Look as if you're dealing from the top of the deck, but instead you just take the bottom card, one that you know. You taking from the bottom means something else entirely in social terms, but it is what I do. I take from the bottom. Won't be hard to find me if you change your mind.
Context of White Supremacy. I would do my woo sound. This is one of the best films you can watch on white supremacy. I'll just leave it at that. You have a white man bragging about his skill with words and his ability to take from the bottom. And I mean, he's just giving you the raw code. We have codified how we're going to keep these niggas on the plantation forever and make money while doing it. Pam, do you have any thoughts on any other thoughts on white people's codification, maintaining their system?
Wow, yeah, that clip is. Well, I just think it's. I think the thing that confused me at first when I kept hearing the word codified and hearing code, I guess I thought it was like some kind of rule, but in some respect, it's a behavior. It's a behavior that has an objective, And so I would say that the whole system of white supremacy is codified, that the white privileges that white people get just from being white is a code in itself. And like I said, in the book in this upcoming book, we do cover it in depth. And one thing I would add is I'm looking for that one thing that I wanted to say about the White Conduct Code. Okay, and this is the last thing I would say about it is you have to, when we talk about black people having a conduct code and white people having a conduct code, it's not enough just to have a conduct code. You have to have a reason to have a conduct code. And white people have a reason for having a conduct code. It just didn't come out of thin air. It didn't just happen randomly. And the reason, in my opinion, is the total domination of non-white people. They have to know that they benefit from their code, which is why they're loyal to their code. And so their loyalty to that code is, because it involves total domination, it has to be a religion. And so their code is their religion. And their loyalty to the code, and people who do not follow that code will get punished. For example, Jane Elliott, she did the the blue-eyed, brown-eyed student experiment, where she basically treated the blue-eyed students like the way the black students were treated, told them that they weren't that intelligent and this and that, and she found that the blue-eyed students started to fail in their classwork. They started to become demoralized. They started to have difficulty believing that they were capable of learning. Well, when she did this experiment in her classroom and it got out into the public, and she wound up on Johnny Carson's show talking about it, the end result was hundreds, maybe even thousands of white people called the show. They wrote letters. They were all irate, and they all wanted to know how could she treat white children that way. Black children were used to being treated that way, but white children, it would permanently damage them. That was the gist of most of the letters. And where in the town that she lived, her children were harassed and bullied. She was shunned by the other teachers. And I believe her father owned a store, and it went into bankruptcy because people boycotted his store, all because she revealed that one little thing, and that was that black people, black children, were treated the way they were treated because it was known that this would damage their self-esteem and their ability to learn. Because had white people not known that this would damage black children, they would not have had a problem with her treating white children that way. So right there, I would say this is to me, what the code means. It's not just a bunch of words. It's not just a bunch of rules on paper. It's a behavior. It's a rule, a conduct code. It's what you're supposed to do, and you better know what you're supposed to do. I'll give you one more example. There's a young white male on my job, and I don't know what happened to him, but he is extremely sheltered. And for some odd reason, I don't know exactly why, he just seems to be very isolated from some of the ways of white people. And he wound up dating this young black lady at work. And I started to notice, even before then, I started to notice that the other white guys, they didn't have anything to do with him. And I suspect it's because he did not know the code as well as he should have. And he was punished even before he started dating this black female, which none of them were doing anything like that. Now, they might be trying to sneak around and get a little something, but they were not, it was understood that's not what white men did. And so this young white male, he's like ostracized, not just because he dated a black young lady. He was ostracized, I suspect, in part because he did not seem to be versed in the code. And I suspect that's because he's been very sheltered, living with his mother and having no friends. Very strange situation, but from what I can see, he has no friends, white male friends outside of work. So I believe that he is penalized. And as a matter of fact, one of the white managers used to give him a hard time. And I think this is part of what we're talking about when white people don't know the code. And I think his case is very rare. But he's aware that he's white. So he has some understanding of some of the things. But for whatever reason, he obviously isn't as well versed in the code as he should be, and he is basically ostracized because of it. So that's just something that I had noticed personally. So other than that, most of the things that one last thing I'll add too is when white people penalize people who don't follow the code, you're expected to know the code, you're expected to obey the code, and if you decide to bend that code, you better not break that code. So even Dr. Trepanier, I can't say, she when she was on C.O.W.S, she just could not bring herself when Justice was asking those questions, and they were pretty standard questions. How do you practice racism? How do your kids practice racism? Could you name 3 ways? No, I can't. I don't know. I don't understand. That's the problem. From a woman who wrote a book explaining what silent racism is, and she can't explain how she practices racism. She can't explain how her children practice. She couldn't give 3 examples. So I guess it's just she could not break the white code of silence. So I would just say that, white people are very much versed, for the most part, in what they should and shouldn't do. And even when they bend the code, they don't break it.
Mm-hmm. Again, repetition, white people do not snitch on other white people. I think Josh Wickett, he picked that part of the code up from Fight Club. Because you get to see a group of white people being codified. They have rules in Fight Club. Brad Pitt, a lot of anti-sexual behavior there, too. You got males with breasts, a lot of white people's sexual deviance in that film, too. But Josh Wickett, the Wickett Ticket, those counter-racist film reviews, first rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. That is white people. You are not supposed to just be ratting out other white people and talking about racism publicly. You're not supposed to be doing that as white people. That's just basic code, and I think you'll see that repeated frequently with white folks, them refusing to throw another white person under the bus. One thing I will say, though, I've had enough conversations with white people, particularly around, when they want to get some bedroom integration, sexually sewer some non-white people. White people can have disagreement, and white people frequently do have disagreements. Not enough to disrupt their system, but white people do have disagreements about how they're going to practice racism. Like the young rapist on your job who's, quote-unquote, dating the black female or non-white female. I suspect, even if he's sheltered and what have you, but I suspect it could be that he just has a different he has a different white supremacist code than some of the other white people on your job. I suspect, because I've seen that, where white people, it's not that this white person, it's not that Teddy is not a racist. It's not that Susan is not a racist. It's just that her racist code is a little different from the other white people's. Important. And again, white people don't have enough of that. They don't have enough of those disagreements. Generally speaking, white people are pretty much on the same page. As you pointed out, they have the built-in punishments. You'll be ostracized, if if your code differs too much, other white people will kind of get you in line. They don't have too much of that. Certainly not enough to disrupt the system, but just wanted to throw that in. Does that make sense, Pam?
Yes, it does. And, that's an interesting way. It's interesting what you just said about he may just have a different code because, like I said, he is aware that he's white. And he has said things that very clear that he's white and and that he knows he benefits. He doesn't, I don't know if he's aware that he's revealing that or not. It doesn't even matter. But I guess his code being somewhat different can even cause you a problem. I've seen white people on other jobs get into trouble with other white people because they bend the code. They do something that white people don't think they should do regarding non-white people, and they will generally there are some consequences for them. Not as bad as the consequences would be for a non-white person doing a lot less, but still there are consequences, and they give them warnings. And I've seen people get warnings, like knock it off. And basically that white person will snap themselves back into line. And I've seen that happen. To give you an example, I had a supervisor, white guy, and, he had probably maybe about a little over half the people in our crew were black, and the other half, a couple of Hispanics and white people. And anyway, make a long story short, one time, I guess a group of us decided that, he was a good supervisor, in our opinion, so we took him to dinner. And this was years ago. And when the other white supervisors heard about it, they punished him. His manager punished him. And I always suspected that the reason he was punished was, how can you have all these black people in your crew who like the way that you treat them well enough to take you to dinner? I don't think it would have mattered if we had been all white. I think the issue was there were black people, half the people were black, and thought that he was a fair supervisor. And they had a problem with that. His manager had a problem with that. And they snapped him and slapped him back into place. And he started to change a little bit. So even though that white person has the basic fundamentals of the conduct code, they may bend it some. But if they bend it too far, depending on what it is, they get slapped back into place. And I've seen it happen. I give some other examples, but, I think the point is made, is that you can bend it, you can modify it, but you better not break it. And if you bend it farther than we think we should, we won't treat you as bad as a non-white person, but we will reprimand you. We will exact some punishment on you, but you'll never be punished the way a non-white person would be punished for doing a lot less. Keeps them loyal, because that's the benefit. I'm never going to be treated as bad as a non-white person. And that's enough incentive, I suspect, to keep a lot of white people supporting the system.
I've heard white people say as much, verbatim. I've heard white people say that it's a lot of incentive both ways. It's a lot. White people get great benefits from practicing racism, white supremacy, being able to sexually molest non-white people when they feel like it, without repercussions and all the other benefits that they get. But also, there are consequences for not following the rules. Not that I'm concerned about that, whatever. But, you will get in trouble with white people if you are not abiding by their code. Not that I think that's something that we should adopt for black people, because I've heard that that's just the type of thing that I've heard black people get very excited about enforcing rules on other black people, and we're going to get those sellout no good niggers, and no. That's not going to work for us at all. Under these conditions, and in fact, that is part of my code that we need get into things black people need to be doing in terms of codifying. Is that cool to bring up some of the codified suggestions for the black? Okay. Yeah, I'm just making sure. I want to be very clear about that. I do not think that's one that we need to pick up for the black team and looking for opportunities to nitpick at one another and create conflict with other black people. I think Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., I believe his concept is the united independent, which is very similar to what white people have. White people do allow for a lot of, difference. You can be very diverse with how you want to practice white supremacy. They do allow, if you want to have sexual intercourse with a non-white person, that's allowed. You don't want to have sex with non-white people, that's allowed. They allow for quite a bit of diversity, and I think we can do the same. We've been doing that all along. I think that can be super constructive for black people, and just keeping that in mind, that it's not about codifying to be in conflict with other black people and to make people so you can go around and enforce code. It's not about that at all. It's just about having proper context so that we can have behavior patterns that are more constructive and do a better job of stopping the racist and trifling antics of racist woman and racist man worldwide. That's all it's about. Not looking for an opportunity to go put your finger in a black person's face because you don't think they're doing the correct. And I mean, hey, let's face it, most of us are doing many things that are not correct and or not constructive. So there would be, we would spend too much time fussing at other black people. So just to make sure that's very clear. Codification, things we can be doing, all areas of people activity. You have some starter suggestions for things black people can do to codify, Pam?
Yeah, I just want to run this by you. You just gave me an idea. The Universal United White Supremacist Conduct Code. Perhaps it should be called the United Independent White Supremacist Conduct Code. Since you brought up the good point that it's not as rigid as white people can't diversify in their mistreatment of non-white people. So what do you think of that?
I think that's what I see. I'll think about it. I guess you can pitch that to listeners as well. They can chime in when we hit the phone lines. But that is, I feel like that's what I see, right? Like white people don't quite do the same thing everywhere. Like I think we've had enough white people from different spots in the globe. Or, you don't even have to, you can talk to white people in the same town. And they might have some differences. Like I've talked to white people who think President Obama is the greatest thing, or they will say they think President Obama is great publicly. And I've talked to white people who say that, they think he's the worst thing ever. I think they both are racist, but they seem to have, different opinions about President Obama and how they're going to use him to practice racism. I think I see a great deal of that, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna hopefully the listeners, if you guys call in, let me know what you think. If you think that would be a better, or should I say more constructive and more accurate term for the conduct code, and that would be United Independent White Supremacist Conduct Code versus the Universal United. So, you guys can let me know what you think. If you shoot me an email, whatever, at our website. Okay, you wanted some examples of a black conduct code?
Yes, ma'am. Some starters, I guess things, or I guess even before we even get to that, if you want to give, if you feel like we've adequately covered the why, you feel like we've adequately covered why black people need to have this code?
Actually, I would add some things to why. And I would say the first thing is if we have to educate ourselves about the system of white supremacy before we even try to create a code. And because that gives us a reason to have a code. So if we understand the system of white supremacy and the system of white domination and the dangers of allowing it to continue, then that should give us some more motivation to develop a code, because our lives and survival depend on creating a code. We can't just create a code out of ignorance. We have to create it out of some knowledge and having a foundation. So another thing I would say about why we need a conduct code is it will help eliminate the anti-blackness within us. All of us have it. I got it. I'm sure everybody at some point in time, you've displayed it. You've said things about black people and you caught yourself. You wondered why you felt this way. You're being very negative, nitpicking with black people, mistreating other black people because they're black, not liking somebody because of the way they look, not liking somebody because of the way they act around white people, on and on and on. It's not, doesn't make us a bad person. It just means that we've been victimized and traumatized, and we've been in a society that has made us see each other through white eyes. So I think that a conduct code will give you even more motivation to start to see the world through self-respecting eyes, and that's something that we need. So a conduct code, if we have a conduct code, it can't help but change the way you see white people and black people. That's my belief. Another thing about a conduct code is it encourages us to have a moral code. A moral code is necessary, in my opinion, so that we don't fall into the trap of what white people do, creating a code that mistreats other people, creating a code that mistreats other black people. So there has to be some morality to our code, some form of justice underlying the code. And that's something that we've lost sight of in our attempt to imitate and validate or be validated by white people, because to be validated by white people means to be anti-black. And we can't raise our children properly without a conduct code that embraces a moral code. And the moral code has to be self-respecting and black self-respecting and respecting of other black people. All these other people, be courteous to them, but I say the focus should stay on black people because that's where my focus is. That's where it would be for me. A fourth thing is a conduct code instills discipline and character. When you start to practice a conduct code, you're holding yourself to a standard. You have some kind of, you're developing something that's going to become part of you. And if it's a good code and it's a moral code, it's going to build character and it's going to build discipline because you can't just be out there just doing everything, saying everything. For example, in my opinion, one of the conduct codes would be, I think the first one would be not having sex with white people, but say a second one would be drop the term good hair from your vocabulary. You know, when you have to discipline yourself and think about what you say and understand how important words are, then you're developing discipline of yourself and you're developing character. And, you know, this is just the way I see it. So I think the days ahead are going to be a test of our character. And so the more we can strengthen our character, the better off we can, the more our ability to end this system and our willingness and our desire and our determination to end the system will grow with the growth of our character. And I would say one last thing. A black conduct code will make it harder for white people to play the nut role because a conduct code reveals the mindset of the people practicing it. So the next time a white person, say, for example, pretends not to know that the U.S. is attacking Libya and pretend not to know that's about white supremacy, you won't be so easily fooled. And what I mean by that is the white conduct code, in my opinion, says that white people always attack non-white people because they are white. And other white people know this. So when they play the nut role and tell you Gaddafi's a monster or Gaddafi's a this or a maniac, I don't believe that if they believe that. I believe all that's necessary for them to justify attacking Gaddafi, attacking Libya, is that he be a non-white person. Because if he wasn't a non-white person, they would question why we were over there. If we went over there and attacked, I can't think of some small European country. It's got to be some little small one. Lithuania or someone like that. Huh? Sweden. White people would be like, why are we bombing Sweden? We could talk about the prime minister or the president being a nut, a kook, whatever. It wouldn't matter. They'd want to know, why are we attacking them? Okay, they've got a nut for a president. That's their problem. Leave them alone. So white people know anytime they attack a non-white nation, they're attacking a non-white nation because that's just what white people do. So when they try to play that nut role and you understand they got that conduct code going, you will know, oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about, but I know that you know that it's not about what you just said it's about. It's about the fact that they're a non-white nation, non-white people, and you have the right, according to your conduct code, to treat them and mistreat them any way you choose. So it'd be a conduct code, understanding it, and developing one will help you recognize when somebody's practicing their conduct code. So that's just part of the stuff that I had thought about. Oh, this is one more thing. Do not share the information about the black conduct code with white people. Just like Dr. Wellesley says, when she said on one of the interviews on Kyle, she said, when white people ask her, Mrs. Wells, Dr. Wellesley, what can I do to dismantle the system of white supremacy? She said, tell black people what white people say when no black people are in the room. And she said, in her experience, she has never had a white person come to her and do that. The closest she came to it was some white female college professor who said, Dr. Wellesley, I hate to admit it, but you're right. What she said was, I hate to admit it, but on all social occasions where white people are together and there are no black people, we're talking negatively about black people. And the assumption is every white person present agrees with the discussion. So just like these white anti-racists or so-called anti-racists come on your show and they don't want to snitch on other white people, we have to learn not to snitch on other black people. There's no reason to share any information about a black hole with a white person. And as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't necessarily even share what a white person is sleeping with, a black person is sleeping with a white person, because they'll probably tell them. So, we have to learn to have our, to have things that we say and do when no white people are in the room. That was the last thing I was going to add.
Wow. Context of white supremacy. Those words. That was. I'm rewinding a little bit to some of the earlier parts of the codification that Pam was sharing when she was talking about words and eliminating good hair. Put that in quotes. Eliminating that from our vocabulary, like last year, eliminating that. That's. I was gonna say that's an easy one, but it's not. That is. I want to try to use the most accurate words that I can. That is an extraordinarily important step because we are so sloppy with our words. So sloppy, and it is a major part of the problem. And what makes it so pitiful is that we are so bad at this one aspect, the communication. White people are extra. Did you hear that sound clip where the man bragged about word games? Man, it is. I mean, it's glaring. It's like I can't even really think of an accurate comparison unless you can think of someone who is super athletic, can run for a week without breaking a sweat, standing up with someone who can barely take one step. That's about the size of the gap between. If you want to think about it another way, it's white people, as Mr. Nero said, white people have fun killing black people. And then you think of the comparison anytime that, black people have been serious about going out and killing violence against white people. I mean, it's about the same gap in terms of communication. We really got to get much better with words. Good hair, fair, relaxer, that's another one we talked about on the program. All these terms, I mean, if you just want like baby steps with codification, just start with, I'm going to be very, very mindful about what comes out of my mouth. I can guarantee you that right there will take up a lot of your time if you're just getting started. Just that right there. How many times do I say fair in a day? How many times, do I say good hair? How many times relaxer? And I mean, it's a long list of these that we could work on cleaning up and just being more accurate about what we say. Huge component to codification that I hope, people, I was going to say that's easy, but I know it's we could just play sounds. I know it's not easy. That is critical. Really do not take that. Don't trivialize that. Don't minimize it. Good hair, relaxer, all the other terms that you hear consistently thrown out, really be mindful about those and what you say, and especially around your children. Be mindful about what you say. So many of the other suggestions I thought very constructive in terms of just beginning. And again, I think you emphasize this as well. This is not a complete thing. People are adding to it. United Independence. So hopefully people will tailor a code specifically for their situation, because we're all in different spots all over the globe and going through different things in our daily lives. So you will have aspects of your code that will be unique to whatever your particular situation is on the plantation, wherever you are. And that's the same thing I see with white people. I mean, this is, I see white people doing the same thing as well. I guess if I had some initial thoughts around codification, I would say, number one, studying white supremacy. I think Pam touched on that as well. Lifelong, like really emphasizing you are a lifelong student. That would just be the case, period, even if there was no white supremacy. But certainly under these conditions, you are a lifelong student of racism, like, period. And I mean gleefully. It's not something where, I got to go read the word guide, or, no. I mean, it should be, yes, I'm looking forward to getting the word guide and spending some time reading it, rereading it, or whatever information that you have concluded. This is constructive. Any opportunity that you can learn and refine your skills in terms of your understanding, your application of counter-racist concepts and how to erode what racist woman and racist man are doing. Lifelong endeavor. And again, something that should not be, oh, gotta do this, that is laborious. Because, I mean, people see that. Your children see that. People are impacted by the way that you do your work. You know, people see you when you come in the morning when it looks like, God, you really look like you don't want to be here today. People see that, right? They make comments about that. You go about the business of counter-racism and it looks like, you know, this is the last thing I want to be doing. Listening to this, listening to Gus or whatever it is, reading the ISIS papers. You know, it really shouldn't be that way. It really should be, this is life-saving information. I think those are the terms Dr. Kanban uses. Life-saving critical information. Might save my life, might save another non-white person's life, might help solve this problem. Let's get started. That should be the attitude about it. Yeah, do you have some other suggestions, Pam?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I am. And, of course, I'd like some feedback from the listeners, either on the phone or email, you know. And I would love for the listeners to think of what should be added to the conduct code, because like Gus said, it's not a fixed or rigid thing. And I think we will change the name to United Independent, because I think that really explains what it is and what it should be for both the White Supremacist Code and the Black Code. So the name that we're going to put in the book then is the United Independent White Supremacist Conduct Code. And for black people, perhaps we could call it the United Independent Black Conduct Code. And if people have any other ideas, totally open to hearing, any other ideas. What I would like to just give an example. It doesn't have to be anything really complicated. It just has to be constructive behavior that helps to eliminate the system of white supremacy / black inferiority. For example, I think the number one conduct code, at least in the top 10, should be no sex with white people. That's pretty much point blank and I think if you understand the system of white supremacy, or at least have a better understanding, it will make sense to you why you should not be sleeping with white people. It's not enough just to make a bunch of rules and say, don't do this, don't do that. I think, first of all, people are not looking to be told what to do. They're not looking for a ruler. They're looking for constructive information. So it's important to have conduct codes that actually make sense in the context of where we are, and that is to eliminate the system of white supremacy and to eliminate the sense of black inferiority, the imaginary, unreal black inferiority. And it's just incredible that this has been so ingrained in us. Understandable, but incredible. But this is just a matrix, and we're in the white supremacy matrix, and all this stuff is made up. But the one thing that is not made up is the system of domination. They have dominated us. So I would give you another example of what I think should be a conduct code. I believe a conduct code is to stop supporting all black, white, green, red entertainers who degrade black people. And that's the movies, that's comedy, that's music, whatever it is. I think you should immediately, when you see that black people are being disrespected and degraded, you should withhold your money and your time and your attention. That goes for politicians. That goes for so-called religious people, people that are misleading black people, people that are harming black people that are degrading black people, regardless of who and what they are. You should withhold your support, financial and emotional and physical support. So that, to me, is some of the things that, like I said, it doesn't have to be anything highfalutin or lofty. It just has to be some everyday things that we should do or should not do. Because there probably is many conduct codes of things we shouldn't do as there are things that we should do. And the things we shouldn't do are easy. Like not going to a movie is pretty easy. Not buying a CD, that's a piece of cake. So it doesn't have to be tremendous hard work, but you do have to be consistent and persistent and just make up our minds that we're going to start adopting some self-respecting behavior. And a lot of the stuff that this system has us doing is not self-respecting at all. So that was just, at first I had thought, well, we got to have penalties for black people who break the conduct code, until you brought up the independent part of the conduct code and how eager we might be to penalize black people who, according to us, are breaking the conduct code. So we don't need I agree, we don't need any unnecessary negativity being directed at other black people. I mean, this is part of what's holding us down. So that's part of having a conduct code that helps to reduce anti-black behavior and anti-black thinking. So hopefully there's a way to adhere to your code without trashing other black people. So that's what it's all about, though. We all have to come together and figure out what this should be and keep working on it, because it's bound to change over time as we refine it. So
that I got that as my code. I have I put down suggestions under the different areas of people activity, and I got that under my code for politics. One of my I have white codes, because I feel like white people already have black codes. That's what they call a lot of their codes for how they're going to be stomping on us, black codes. Even got that in French, code noir. So I think we should have white codes to deal with white people in response. But, again, united, independent, call it whatever you want. Under politics, I have Mr. Fuller, his definition of politics relating with people, dealing with other people. With regards to how we relate to other people, I don't name call, and no harm to black people. Now, I am very bad about name call, or really, it's black people are horrible about name calling, and I will say again, white people are the worst name callers, the greatest name callers in the known universe. Racist man, racist woman, and again, when they start calling names, people begin to die by the tens of thousands. At any rate, we have picked up a lot of their bad habits, and we do a lot of name calling. I'm guilty of this myself. That's something really, try to be on the ball about that, not name calling. One thing I can at least say, at least when I am talking about racism, I stick to that pretty hard about name calling, even white people. Not name calling. I just have found it's not constructive. It easily leads to conflict. It's contagious. It just seems to catch on. At any rate, it's just a big part of our victimization. It feels good, and it's something that we really need to put down. I have not seen any constructive value to name calling. I haven't even seen constructive value to name calling white people, to be truthful. But at any rate, no name calling, no harm to black people. That's got to be major aspect of the code. Just cannot be about harm coming to black people. And that's why I said that immediately, because I know the anti-blackness is so strong that, that would end up being what it's about. Did you see that black person with the white woman? We are going to get that nigga. It would just be a lot of that. It would be a lot of that. Oprah Winfrey, people would be lined up. It would be. And the bad thing, you could pretty much get any black person that you want, because I guarantee you would struggle to find a black person that is not breaking some aspect of somebody's counter-racist code. I don't know who you would name. Mr. Fuller, I know people would be outside. I've heard everybody. No black person would be safe. It would be terrible. That's really got to be a core aspect, that you really do everything you possibly can to not be a part of harm coming to other black people, directly, indirectly. That's got to be a huge aspect of it. And I don't care what the really, at this point, unless that black person is directly harming someone, unless that's going down, no, I am not signing on to anything. And I would be speaking against anything where we're going to get these black people because they're engaged in anti-sexual behavior. We're going to get these black people because they are engaged in sexual intercourse with a white person. We're going to get whatever the reason is. There are many black people doing many incorrect things. It cannot be, we're going to put, hands on these black people. That's going to solve the problem. I've seen that before, and I have not seen ever where that goes the constructive route of things working out well for black people. I haven't seen that yet. Anybody, I will definitely hit the phone lines, and again, you don't agree, fine. But I would definitely, want some detailed information about where other black people putting their hands in a harmful way on other black people, that has been constructive under white supremacy. I guess I'll give out a couple more quick suggestions that I have. Part of my code, and this is a little different, so you can have diversity. I've concluded that it's going to be very difficult to have secrets under white supremacy. I think I know Mr. Fuller has said if more than one person knows it, you could just assume that that's not a secret anymore. Somebody's going to, and I abide by that same logic. So I don't really put it this way. I don't make an effort to give white people unnecessary information. I'll say that again. I make an effort to not give out white people information unnecessarily. Any white person, enforcement officers, the whole nine. You codify how you deal with them. I realize this is war, and I'm just not trying to share everything with white people, even though I feel like white people can probably get whatever information they want under racism, white supremacy. One of the ways that I do this, anytime I'm in a conversation with a white person, I came up with this a long time ago. I think I've shared this before, but I'll make sure I get it again. I came up with this a long time ago. I noted one of the trends when I first started to become informed about racism, or thought I was becoming informed about racism. I wanted to show off. I wanted to say, hey, I'm not like, these other dumb black people. See, I know, right? And I would get in conversations, especially with white people, and I would just talk and talk and talk and be pointing out stuff. And I finally had to stop and say, now, wait a minute. Why am I trying to inform this white person about racism? And it just was like, yeah, that's pretty ignorant. Probably shouldn't be doing that in conversations. So to guard against that, what I started to do, I came up with a ratio in my head, 7-to-1. My 7-to-1 ratio, it is a good conversation for me, talking to a white person, if I'm getting constructive information, and if I'm asking about 7 questions for every 1 question that they ask. That's a good ratio, and that lets me know I'm not just sitting here running off at the mouth. I'm asking this white person questions, and I tend not to just, ask frivolous questions. So if I'm getting answers, I should be getting constructive information. That's my own rate, and I have seen that work very well when I adhere to that. It keeps me from ever having a time where I'm talking to a white person and just running off at the mouth. I found that that's just not constructive. It tends to be much better if I'm asking questions and getting them to talk. And I've seen where that ratio, for me, where that ratio drops and the white person is asking a lot of questions and I'm doing, man, those are some of the least constructive conversations. The one I'm remembering, Non-Mightywick was present. It was with a white woman. I'd ring my cowbell, but I'm not on the page. She cried twice. It was terrible. It was terrible. And she was rapid fire asking, bang, bang, bang. She was one after another. It was probably one of the worst ratios I ever had. I think she asked about 12 questions for every 1 question that I got. It was awful. And she was crying all along. That's another part of your code. That is one of the most dangerous things. White women, period. Incredibly dangerous. A crying white woman, oh man. You do not respond to that at all. You just have that. Anytime you're in a discussion about racism, white supremacy, in fact, my code on that, I try to preempt that. I've seen that a couple times where I caught that white woman was about to cry. Bang, interrupt whatever you got to do. Immediate announcement. Hey, this is very important. A huge part of our victimization, black people, we are extraordinarily sensitive to crying white people, especially a crying white woman, any age, 3 to 103. You cannot do that here. I understand if, you are touched by what has been said, if you are sincerely moved, no problem. But I got to ask you to go outside. You cannot be here crying. That will have a horrendous effect on what we're trying to do in being truthful, honest dialogue about racism, white supremacy. You cannot cry here. And I have seen that work in fact, I've had that happen where I was able to preempt it and the white woman didn't even cry. It was like she stopped the tears on a dime. And it was very effective. Everybody understood. If you can get that out before the tears start, it has a great impact. Try to be on guard. If you looks like somebody is trying to get misty-eyed, immediate interrupt, and I mean be clear. Take your time and articulate the logic behind how we have, I mean, that's in our DNA. Oh, my Lord. Oh, thank you so much for coming. Oh, we're just so thankful that you could be here. And this is what this is all about, and healing and what praise. Oh, it's conversation is going to be over. You might as well, go home. Meeting is over. Those are just some of the codes that I try to use in having dialogue about racism, white supremacy to make it as constructive as possible. I don't know. I'll check with you, and then after we can check the phone lines. Pam, if you have any other thoughts?
Well, you know what? That might be part number 5, White Women's Tears, of the White Supremacist Conduct Code. That was something I had considered, but I just said, well, I got to cut it off someplace. But I agree with you. I think that I have to remember that before you even look like you're getting teary-eyed. Just cut you off at the knees and say, you have to leave the room. You start those waterworks. So it's so manipulative. It's really sickening. I mean, it's really just sickening. And you see it all the time. Even as they're accusing black people of crimes that the black person didn't commit, they're crying. Get out of here. But no, I don't have anything else to add. I just, that particular tactic is just annoying to me. Particularly for a woman to do that to another woman. What am I mean, am I not a woman too? What are you crying to me for? I mean, I'm not supposed to be some big bad monster. And you're some delicate little flower.
Mm-hmm.
That's just annoying to me. It's just almost, taking away my femininity by acting like, I'm some brute. That's why I don't talk to them too much. But no, I don't have anything else to add.
I think that's a great part of the code too. I think people have said that before, in minimizing the amount of contact you have with white people. I said that on a previous program. I don't think it's good for our self-esteem to have a whole lot of contact with white people. I've said before, white equals racist. I don't think it's good for black people to have contact with racists. I think it's horrible for your self-esteem. I understand for job, we all got to go to the plantation, but unless it's that, you really, as much as you can, minimize your contact with all white people, unless it's going to be plantation related or something constructive for you. They're helping you get a car for free, or cut your mortgage in half.
And that's business.
Exactly.
It's not social anyway. That's business. So I mean, they don't have any problem being in contact with us when it results in their benefit, business-wise. So, I mean, we still have to be in contact with them. We still have to interact with them, but just keep it business. I mean, most white people, that's the way they keep it anyway. Most white people don't want to hang out with us. They don't want to invite us to their homes, and they're dominating us. So why in the world would we think socializing with them would cause them to dominate us less? I mean, take a page out of their conduct code. They can still conduct business and not make it social with us.
Yep. I had said that earlier in the program, too, with regards to taking some pages out of Racist Man and Racist Woman's conduct code. One of the codes for white people that I've seen that works very well with regards to letting white people know, hey, there are consequences for not adhering to the racist code. That sex thing. White people are very clear. Hey, we are not about having our children marry niggers. Do not bring any niggers here talking about you're getting engaged, Be very, I mean, white people are very upfront about that. You can do whatever, sexing around and, whatever. We all done that. What you saying, what is it, Monsters Ball? I used to have a thing for dark oak myself. Yeah. But marriage, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And I mean, be very clear. Those marriage statistics, it is less than, I think, 3%. White people are not about that. They are rock solid code on that. We are not marrying niggers, period. We should be bedrock on that, and we're not right now. We get like an F. If there was something lower than an F, we would get that. Bedrock, I mean, I would be telling the child as soon as possible, no marrying white people. There's no compromise on this. There's nothing to discuss. I don't want to hear any, oh, Mom, will you just meet him? Oh, Dad, he's cool. Just no. You will not be welcome anymore. I don't want to see the grandchildren. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see him. Like, really emphasizing this is totally, like, 9,000% unacceptable. And you give the explanation why. It's not just, we don't like white people. No. Codification. We're studying racism. We're studying Neely Fuller. We've studied Dr. Welsing. We've read Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. By this time, Interracial Con Game will be out. You have a thorough context to grasp this does not happen at any time ever, or you have made the decision. That's what you're telling us. I'm marrying this white person. I'm leaving the family. Like, make sure that there's no ambiguity about that at all. We need to take that directly from the White People's Code book. That's one I would be, and even with that, no harm. Just let that person know you're letting us know you're leaving the family. If you decide you're going that route, and you can add the anti-sexual thing onto that as well. Those should be two things very clear. We're not doing sex with white people. We're not doing the anti-sexual stuff. Both of those, you're leaving the family.
C.C. Blackman yesterday talked about, and I just would add to that, what you just said was it has to be a part of your life. In other words, your kids have to grow up in a context of understanding that there are certain conduct codes that they're expected to follow the same way white kids grow up in the home, understanding their conduct codes. You can't send your kids to a predominantly white school and then come and tell them that, well, I don't want you to be around white people. It has to be a context of how you live overall. You can't be on TV talking about that Kim Kardashian sure is fine and then tell your son not to bring a white girl home. You can't be a black female bringing white female friends around and telling your son just ignore white women. So it has to be the life that you lead. You can't be running around with blue contact lens telling your kids not to be around white people, not to like white people. It has to be an environment your child grows up in where that conduct code is going to be effective. It can't be with you giving mixed messages and being confused yourself, because your kids are going to pick up on that confusion. You can't be making fun of black people. You can't be talking about nappy hair is bad. You can't be saying and talking about good hair and pretty light skin. You can't be doing and saying the things that contradict what you say your conduct code is, because your kid is going to pick through that. They're going to see right through it, and you're just going to have a ball of confusion. So I think it's really important that if you're going to have a child and you have these expectations, that your whole way of life has to reflect that belief system. It can't just be words. It's got to be action. And they got to be able to look at you and see that you are consistent and you are serious about what you're saying and that you're living what you say you live. So and that's where all of this code is, following the code comes from. It builds discipline. It builds purpose. It helps it becomes a part of you. It becomes, like now, when I think about tragic relationships and myself, it's like, it's automatic. It's not something I want to do. I see all these interracial ads. Black women, can Mr. Right be white? Is marriage for white people? Black women should date outside their race. When I see all that, immediately, that's trash to me. It doesn't get into my head because I've already got a purpose. I'm not just not dating white guys because I don't have nothing else to do. I'm not dating white guys because I have a personal code that says that is aiding and abetting the system of white supremacy. That is degrading myself. That is helping to extend the life of white supremacy. That is cooperating with white supremacy. That is laying down with white supremacy, the human face of white supremacy. So when I see these ads, I've already got my armor on. And when white people see this stuff about interracial, the vast majority of them, no, they don't want no part of it. So they've already got their armor on. They're not going to let an average black person get close enough to make them break their code. They might bend that code and do a little sneak behind closed doors. But when it comes to forefront, who they support, who their people are, where their heart is, the vast majority of them have their armor on. They're not going to let themselves get any closer than you than what benefits them. And even when they so-called marry black people, even when they have sex with black people, even when they breed with black people, they are still following the religion of white supremacy. Right there in that house with you, they are still following the religion of white supremacy. And if you have been around black people who have been in a long-term relationship with white people, you can see the damage that's done to them. You can see the confusion and the conflict. You can see the secrets. You can see the traumatized person. If you really, really pay attention and you listen to what they say and you hear the anti-black things they say, and what you'll hear is you'll hear a lot of anti-black rhetoric from the people like that. Now, how are you going to talk anti-black and not be talking about yourself? So my point is that white people have their armor on, even when they're with a white black person, even when they're married to a black person. They still maintain that white supremacy system, that white supremacist code. They're going to maintain it till the day that they die. And so I'm saying the children, even the so-called black children that grow up in that white household, they're going to follow that white supremacist code. They're going to attempt to. They can't do it really, but they're going to be white identified because that's what the house is built on. It's built on that conduct code. And even when you're a black person within that household, you're going to start adhering to that conduct code. So I'm just saying all that in a long-winded kind of way just to say if you're going to have a conduct code and you're going to have standards for your children, you got to make it part of your household. You got to make it part of your life. And they've got to see that you're serious and that your life reflects what you say you believe.
So, agreed, 1,000%. 1,000%. I'd say if you spend a lot of time ogling white people on television, that's probably going to erode your counter-racist effort too. If you're, Desperate Housewives, or I don't really watch television like this. I don't know what's on, but whatever. I know it's a lot of white people generally on television. If you're spending a lot of time watching television, probably going to erode your counter-racist effort. Yeah, I think I said that before. I think that might be a part of our addiction to television. You have pretty much unfettered access to racist man, racist woman. Our white identification. You can just gorge yourself with white people. We do have...
Can I just say one last thing?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What you said, and I agree with that. That white identification, that television, it also breeds anti-blackness. I mean, it breeds a sense of black people, a negative. It breeds not a negativity toward black people. So that white identification is really just the flip side of the coin of anti-blackness. So if you're sitting there watching a lot of white people and relating to a lot of white people, you're becoming more and more anti-black because white people don't believe in equality. This television viewing, it's not based on equality. It's based on white supremacy. So if you're absorbing it, you're absorbing anti-blackness. That's the only thing to add.
We do have hands up, but sometimes it's nice if you have an illustration. This is I'm just giving you a sample of what's on television. Why you're going to end up being very white identified, anti-black, and then I'll hit the phone lines. I see the hands. Press *8 if you have a question. I'll just go in order. This is you don't even need. This is just television under racism, white supremacy. I think Dr. Welsing, she said you should have a sign on your television that says white supremacy programming.
Next. Name?
Gus Gorman.
Yes. August Gorman. Have you looked for work this week, Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
What kind?
Kitchen technician.
Dishwasher? Any luck?
No, but...
Mr. Gorman, according to our record, you've been unemployed for 36 weeks.
No, it's 35.
Not counting this week. You secured employment last June as a messenger and were discharged after 1 day for losing...
No. See, they said I lost that. I did not lose it. It was stolen by a pickpocket.
A television set?
It was a teeny weensy Japanese 2-inch television set. Anybody?
The only other employment you found was in a fast food joint, which lasted 28 minutes. Well, that's some kind of record. Talk about fast.
Well, you know, those people are crazy. They expect you to learn that stuff in 1 day, right? I mean, like, hold the lettuce, hold the ketchup. Can I have some sauce, please? I don't want any sauce.
Mr.
2
Gorman.
buns, no buns, some cheese, no cheese.
Mr. Gorman, the city of Metropolis is generous to a fault, but...
I'm not the fault.
36 weeks of chronic unemployment, 36 weeks of living off the taxes of hardworking citizens. Do you know what you are?
Don't call me a bum. I'm not a bum.
You are, I was about to say, no longer eligible.
No, look.
Next.
Wait a minute. What about this week? I need this week.
Next.
You mean that's it? Finished, like over. Huh.
Next.
Next is in by.
Next.
Ooh, man.
Excuse me.
That is funny on so many levels. Man, oh man. That is from Superman 3. That is television. White people are Superman and Wonder Woman. Black people, unemployed thieves. Television under racism, white supremacy. I was cracking up laughing during that because they mentioned the setting for Superman as Metropolis, and that is, woo, so funny for so many reasons. Person that called in from California, did you have a question or comment? Person in California, your line should be open.
Hi, thank you. I was just listening to you and Sam speaking on...
Can you speak up a little bit? You're kind of low.
Sure. I'm sorry, I'm driving. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Be careful.
Okay, super. Okay, I will. I'll be careful. I was listening to you guys speak on how you should inform the children, and I think that's true. I try with my son. I have a 21-year-old daughter, and I didn't try as hard, but my mother died trying to make sure I was together, reading this, doing this, informing me of this. No, even when she was so off the Richter with it, we couldn't, when they changed the cereal back in the 70s, they took the brown elephant off the Cocoa Krispies and put the three little Caucasian crackling pop on there. So that couldn't come in my mom's cabinet. So she didn't play. And, I always thought she was just extreme. And I didn't like that at all. I wanted to be white identified. I really did. I tried real hard to be exactly what she didn't want me to be. And I didn't realize what I was doing until later. I don't realize it until later that she was right and I'm all the way wrong. So by now I have a teenage daughter, a younger daughter that wants to be white, just like Big Girls Don't Cry, like the commercials that I'm letting her live and watch on TV. My daughter's watched so much television, it's like she had a pocket TV. She watched so much television, and it really ruined her brain. It really messed her up. It messed her up real bad, and then by the time I see the damage, she's, 16? So what am I going to take away, So with my son, I tried to make sure I went out of my way to correct the errors that I made, and kind of, even though my mom weirded me out with all that subliminal messages and subliminal messaging, everything. You're not watching Bewitched. Just white women don't have powers, and all this stuff. And I was like, what? I'm the only child in the world. But as I get older, I see exactly what she was doing, and now I'm doing it. And it works with my son because he doesn't watch TV. It's rare. If he's at someone's house, he can, I can't stop that. But there's no TV. And I told him the TV was broke, so he doesn't watch it. He has books. He has other things to do. So that is good, and it does help because we went to go see the Smurfs. I was like, okay, let's look for racism in the Smurfs, okay? So we all went, and we were looking for, it was a couple of little things on the Smurfs, you know, real quick. But that's what I do with my son, and I didn't do that with my daughter, and there's a big difference in him and her because I wanted to be white or white identified. I really did. Darn. Okay. I'm done.
Yeah. That's a good testimony because, you know, we've all gone through what we've gone through. And it's good that you at least are able to catch the mistakes that you think you made for the second, you know, so that you can, you know, keep your son from going down that road. I think that's excellent.
Interesting.
And your daughter, you know, she may eventually, because I went through a thing of being white identified. You know, I mean, who hasn't? But I mean, it's, you know, I believe as time goes along and as the economy and everything changes, I believe that black people will have to come to some realization that they may need to do something different than what the television is showing us.
I gave her Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's ISIS paper, The Keys to the Colors. I haven't given her an English color book yet because my son still owns both of them, like they're his. But she read it a couple of times, and she's really trying to dissect it. She's so much information in there. And I said, yeah, it's so much to grasp. And I said, yeah, it is. So now, and then she can connect it with what she already knows because by her being wanting to be white, like HBO and Nickelodeon that I allowed her to watch, I had to send her to the Muslim school real quick so she could, I could fix something. I'm like, we're going to find you some black pride somewhere. So they helped her as far as regaining self-respect, not wanting to be something that she wasn't. They really helped her with that, and so she would come home. So she knows some stuff. She knows white people are, she calls them the devil. She knows they're grafted from the black man. Just little stuff that she knows about them, but it's just the way society grasps the younger children. BET, oh, God, my worst nightmare, BET. I boycotted BET, but it was still showing in my home. My children are still watching the videos and whatever other crap they have on BET. I'm just not watching it, thinking I'm doing something. And I'm not, because I know better, but they don't. So they're listening. You know, she wants to do what, you know, what she sees everyone else doing. So it's just hard changing that or letting them know that, well, that's not what's really cracking. That's not really what's hot. You know, it might seem like it, but, you know, that's not what's going on. That's not good. You know, it's hard to say that when you've allowed them to absorb all that negativity for so long. It's crazy. But
and maybe
you guys are great.
Yeah, well, thank you. Maybe this is a lesson for those who are watching who have young children, is to don't get them hooked on the TV. Now, they're going to see the TV sooner or later, but they won't be brain trash from an early age. I mean, you at least have a head start on putting some sense into their head. So to me, that's a good lesson as far as not allowing the television to babysit your kids. I mean, there's puzzles, there's games, there's books. I mean, there are things that we did. And we didn't. I didn't sit in the house watching television all the time. When I was a kid, I mean, I had a lot of other stuff to do. I watched television, but I didn't watch it as much as kids do now. There's a lot of things kids can do that don't take a lot of money. Games that, building block things, things that require manual skills and require thinking. And I'll tell you, if you let that TV babysit them, they're going to be mentally lazy on top of everything else. I think they did a study that said they did a study of the brain waves of people who were watching television, and they said there was no brain activity. When they whatever study that was, I forget what it was, supposedly there was no brain activity when they tested people who were watching television. Now think about your child, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sitting for hours in front of a box with colors, with white supremacy programming, and no brain activity. Well, of course, there got to be some brain activity, but they're like a sponge just absorbing. But I think that's pretty scary to have a child sitting there engaging in hours of activities where there's no brain activity, no sizable brain activity. So think about that. It's not just the white supremacy programming. You're basically brain numbing them And that doesn't mean they're going to be stupid, but certainly it must stunted their potential to some degree.
It has to. Now, I couldn't watch TV. My mom, I wanted to call the police on her. I just didn't understand. I couldn't. No, the TV's sending you subliminal messages. I'm like, what? Subliminal message? This is good. I'm the only child in the world. She's like, not you. No TV for you. And I'm just like, I'm the only, this is CPS. Can come in here. I didn't understand. I just did not care for her. I didn't understand. She's like, no white bread. No white bread. All the children eat Wonder White. And I got to eat this brown bread. Yep. No white sugar. No white sugar. It was terrible. I was like, are you serious? Yep. And it's like, either take it or you can go to the foster home that you're going to be at when you call CPS on it. You can do that. You can do this. And that was her. That's how she lived, and I just wanted to go to the foster home.
But check it out. Look at the seeds she planted. It didn't grow right away, but look at you now. You wouldn't have been watching cows maybe if she hadn't planted, listening to it. If she hadn't planted, see the seeds, she planted the seeds. And you never know when the seeds are going to sprout. But a lot of us, we remember things that our parents told us that we totally dismissed, totally ignored, and it came back to kick us in the butt, and we think like, man, now I see what she meant. Now I see what he meant. And I have those days, those moments all the time with things that people told me that I didn't understand then or didn't agree with, and now I understand. So it's important to plant the seeds. You don't necessarily determine when they'll grow. But if you plant enough of them, sooner or later, some of them are going to be there. I just believe that. Sooner or later, when there's a storm, big enough storm, those seeds might sprout, and they might grow into a big, beautiful plant. You just never know.
I was going to suggest that it might be constructive if you're interested to check into what program, or you might know what programs your daughter watched when she was watching a lot of television. It might yield quite a bit if you find out like the programs that she watched, and then to go watch those programs to see what messages she was getting. Particularly if it was programs that were on for a number of seasons. If she watched, that might be interesting. Not sure. Let's see.
Yeah, she watched a lot of like I'm a little scary. I was a little scary. I'm not as scary as I used to be. I used to be real spooky. I'm heck of spooky because I came up in Hollywood, so just spooky, just stupid. But she wasn't, so she like rated R, death, kill, murder, charm, just weird monk, just weird stuff like that. And I didn't, but it was my fault. I could have just gave her a credit card TV. It just I destroyed her. It's my fault.
Racist man. I was just going to say racist man and racist woman are most to blame. I think Dr. Welsing, she'll be here this weekend. I think she says that consistently to not, beat up on ourselves. We're learning and just figuring things out.
Yeah, I'll be ready for that too. On the 11th, I think. Yeah. Thank you. You guys are great. I'll let someone else tell their spill. Thank you.
For sure. Person that dialed in from New York that had a hand up. Did you have a question? Your line should be open.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay. Good evening, Pam. Good evening, Gus. Pretty constructive information. I have 4 suggestions that I use in my daily interactions with people. If you mind, I'll share them with the listeners, if you don't mind.
Oh.
Is that okay?
It's okay with me.
Gus?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 1, chronicle 2 or 3 areas of people activity daily to document your observation of the mistreatment, abuse, and codified conflict against victims. Then go home and develop counter strategies or solutions to each of these recorded scenarios and make a conscious effort to apply these efforts and document the results. This is when I look at nearly Fuller's 9 areas of people activity. I make a conscious effort every day because I know it's difficult for a person to try to look at all 9. So I make a conscious effort on my day-to-day basis to observe 2 or 3 of the areas and write down observations on a day-to-day basis, and then I come home and I analyze them and I look at ways in which a person or myself could have countered those situations that occurred. Number 2, watch or listen to the news daily with your eyes closed in order to train your ears to discern which oppositional behavior patterns are occurring. When I get into the office, since I don't watch television at home, when I get into the office, I'll usually put on the CNN Live or something like that, and I'll just listen for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes with my eyes closed and just pay attention to what they're saying. And it's quite a good training exercise. You're able to learn when the victim or the perpetrator is a person that is non-white, you can automatically pick it up from the way in which they begin the news account. Number 3, to code written materials such as news reports or magazine interviews by going through the content line by line and examining the contextual usage and documented definitions of the words used. I do this with my daughter all the time. We'll look at a magazine article, particularly at Essence magazine. Now that the Black Woman's Bible has a white managing editor, I realize so many black women read Essence every month. I go through Essence magazine with her every month, and we pay attention to all the articles, and she has begun to notice how much of the coverage is geared towards pushing the agenda of black women dating outside their race or in being in so-called alternative unions, if you will. And the 4th one is develop and use a daily word list and monitor the feedback received from others. So I will go through some words that I may have heard from people that I might be kind of unclear or cloudy on the usage, and then I'll look in the dictionary, or I'll go through Word, for instance. If you open a Microsoft Word document and you type the word, and then you just highlight the word and hit F5, they're going to come up several suggestions of words that are similar to that word, and then I'll go through those words and click Look Up, and it'll always give you a word that's similar to that word. And by the time you go through the list, you'll end up having about 12 different words for the one word that you started out with. That's something that I do on a daily basis. Now, by way of a suggestion, what I would suggest to parents, the number one enemy in terms of literature that's in a home, and I know this from growing up, is a Victoria's Secret catalog. When you have a Victoria's Secret catalog and you have a young, impressionable young man in your house, young male in your house, that's going to be his masturbation material. And if he spends an inordinate amount of time sitting around looking at and gawking at pictures of white women in underwear, it's not going to be a surprise that when he gets an opportunity to go away to college or anywhere else, that he suddenly is so attracted to and trying to pursue white women. So I strongly encourage every black female, if you are a patron of Victoria's Secret, you go there to buy your underwear and so forth, okay, that's fine. Look at the catalog online, go to the store, but immediately get rid of that catalog in your house. Those are my suggestions.
That was excellent about the catalog. A lot of little things that we don't think about. A lot of things that reinforce white supremacy and white beauty that black women don't even think about. It reminds me of black women bringing white. I know this brother told me this one time. He was told this. He said that he was telling some black women, you need to start bringing these white women around us. So you'll bring these white women to the parties, and you'll bring these white women. You think they're your friends, but in reality, they're just trolling for black men. So these women aren't your friends. They'll take your boyfriend if you give them a chance. So a lot of things that black women don't think about that actually encourage interracial dating between black males and black females. Don't bring white women around socially, around your friends and families and picnics and reunions and weddings. Don't do that. And that's what this brother was telling me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm in New York, and today they had the West Indian Day Parade, and I just noticed it just seemed like every group of black women had one white friend, if you will, with them. Mm-hmm. And it was like the token white friend, and the token white friend would, on this particular day, because it's the West Indian Day Parade, she would have her hair in some sort of pseudo braids or through dreads, and I noticed that the majority of the black males, particularly black males in the Caribbean, you would assume would be less focused on a white-identified female, but it would be like when that one white female was in a group of 10 black females, mm-hmm. all of the attention was focused on that white mm-hmm. female. Mm-hmm. And I noticed this throughout the parade today, mm-hmm. and it was pretty sickening.
Yeah. And the thing is, black women, in my opinion, need to understand is she is there with her own agenda. She's there. She has her agenda. She's there. She's not your friend. Why is she putting her hair in braids? I mean, what is she? What is she? What is the point of that? She has an agenda.
Should add that to the list of being booted out of the family, white. I mean, I can't even say it. Like, literally, it hurt my ears to hear friend and white together. I mean, add that to, so it would be the anti-sexual behavior, sexual intercourse with white people, and friend. I can't even say it the other way. Friend and white together. Those three, I mean, that's absurd. Absurd. But excellent suggestion.
Yeah. And for people who think, wow, that sounds so extreme, well, this is war. This is war. And either you want to win the war or you don't. And war is uncomfortable. War is difficult. And if we don't understand that we're at war, then we don't have any chance of doing anything. So this is war. If we were in a nice kumbaya, let's hold hands, ring around the rosy kind of world, then, it might be extreme to say white and friend as an oxymoron. But in a system where white people are dominating and mistreating non-white people, even those white people who call themselves a friend have a black friend, and even those white people who have a black sexual partner or a black child, they're not talking. They're not working against the system. They're not snitching on white people. They're not even informing their children of what other white people are doing. And I guarantee you, at least this is just my opinion, but I will guarantee you that white parent of a non-white child is not sitting down and snitching on white people. They are not preparing their child for what they know white people are going to do to them. So if a white person won't even tell their own child, they won't even snitch on white people to protect their own child, what in the world could they be doing for you? So I just think that's really important to consider that if that person is not willing to expose the racism to their own child. That says a lot of where the loyalties lay. So in that context, white and friend don't go together, because nobody's a friend that allows you to be mistreated, and nobody's a friend that knows you're going to be mistreated and doesn't warn you. That's not a friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Caller in New York, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
No. I guess the last thing is I would say to parents, really, we know that we're in a intense media environment. Your children are going to watch television and movies and so forth. So just sit down and watch it with them. My daughter and I, she said to me she wanted to go see the Smurfs. And I was like really surprised that she would want to see that. And then she says to me, I think that movie's going to be racist, so let's see it. Now, I thought she was kind of pulling my leg just to go and see the Smurfs. So we went to see the Smurfs. And it was amazing to see that afterwards, when we sat down to have dinner, she was able to pick out quite a bit of racism in the Smurfs. How Gargamel was a so-called Jew who was trying to find or uncover the hiding place of all these dark complexion folks, the Smurfs, and how Gargamel created Smurfette to create disruption amongst all the other Smurfs. And she was able to pick this out herself, and she's only 11 years old. So I think that parents should really give their children credit by being and saying that these kids could decipher these things if you show them that you believe in them enough to sit down and have an open and honest conversation with them. I think that more of us are embarrassed because we didn't wake up or begin to wake up until our adulthood. So as a result of that, many of us are embarrassed to admit to our children that we are racism illiterate.
Mm-hmm. That's a real good point. God, that's got to be really thrilling, too, to see that your daughter is got a foundation at 11 years old. That's pretty cool.
Well, she listens to the show. She likes to hear Justice on the show. Actually, she only listens to the show to skip forward to those parts, and then she doesn't want to hear the rest of the show, but she listens to the show. And she likes to hear the buckets and buckets of words. That's like her little funny phrase that she says to people all the time. That just sounds like buckets and buckets of words.
Actually, that's one of my favorite lines, too.
So I really think that, if parents really engage younger people, that the younger people will get involved. I met the guest that was on the show, C.C. Blackman, back in 2006. We had in downtown Brooklyn, we had about a 3-hour conversation. That day I bought about 6 books from him. Saw him another time and bought about 7 or 8 more from him. And then over the years, I probably have purchased upwards of about 30 of those books from him and just give them out to young people. Mm-hmm. And it's a great conversation starter. I think that book is a good primer for opening a young person's mind to probably beginning to read the Dr. Wells's work or Neely Fuller's work. So, I would definitely recommend it.
I'll
give someone else an opportunity to speak.
Did you want me to mute your line, or do you want me to leave your line open and you can mute yourself?
I'll mute myself.
Groovy. Young Chad, give me 1 second. I'll get you as well. A person who called in from California with a hand up. Your line should be open. I did want to get the Smurfs. I mean, you talk about white people and their craziness. They made a cartoon that is just saturated with anti-sexual behavior. I don't know if people that picked that, but I mean, the Smurfs is super, super, super homosexual, homoerotic. And then they got the whole shroom aspect. I mean, white people's psychoses is rampant in a lot of the children's cartoons that they put together. That's my 2 cents on the Smurfs. Person that called in from California, your line is open.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, Gus and Pam.
Greetings.
Yeah, there's a documentary called The Code. I think I would encourage everybody, to watch it. I know they spent about a couple of $100,000 on the documentary, and it's all about behavior patterns and Stanford and these different universities studying behavior patterns and basically they have a code basically on behaviors. So yeah, I just would encourage people to watch that. It's on YouTube.
Online?
Yeah, it's online. You can see it on YouTube.
Okay.
And when I was growing up, I was encouraged to be quiet, like, for a week. I was encouraged, by a reward and challenged, to be quiet for a week. And I had siblings who tried to get me to speak, but they went through this similar, same things. At different points, they were encouraged to not speak, and I guess it was kind of like a game to see if they can get you to speak or whatever, But it was pretty support. I was supported in just being quiet, and it was a lesson for us to basically listen, listen and think about, I guess to think and I would encourage, if you have children or if you're around children, to and for adults, because we need to not speak as much. Because I don't know, we have like Gus was saying, as far as our language is.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That was me.
Okay.
So, did you hear when Gus said that?
I think I was saying that, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I forgot what I was kind of saying. I just got distracted. Sorry. You can go to the next caller.
Sorry about that, 909. I hit a button by accident. If you remember your thought, we would definitely like. I thought you did say, do you remember when Gus? I thought it was in reference to something I'd said earlier, but can you? What was the name of the documentary film again, sir?
The Code. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The Code, and you did say it was online, correct?
Yes, sir. YouTube.
That's
where I watched it.
Okay. All right. Check it out. I'm a big fan of that. I think I've said that before as well, in terms of not talking as much and doing more listening. I'm a big. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think we should do a lot more of that. I try to do that as I can, just listening to words that people use and just trying to observe and pay attention to things. I think that's a great suggestion as well.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. I will leave your line open. That way, if you get the opportunity to remember your thought, you can share. Will that work?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, you can go to the next call, but I remember what I was going to say. It won't take long.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say we need to slow. We need to slow down. We're moving very fast, and if you just would stop speaking and think, we could figure out a lot of these problems that we have, within ourselves and within our family and whatnot. And we're not slowing down and think and really thinking about what it is that we're doing. Because we're moving very fast, we're talking a lot, and all these different stimuli, the television, the computer, the radio, people that are in your life. It's just moving, and you're not thinking about anything. You're reacting a lot, and you're just not thinking, and basically in this system, this deadly system, it's just, man, it's just sad. It's very sad. We need to slow down, think about what you're doing, because the answers are right there, man. It's just like we just don't slow down and ask any questions. We don't use our brains, man. That's the lesson I learned from not speaking. To use, that was a good lesson, and I would encourage adults, and if you have children, to do that.
And I would add to that. I think that's good. And add to that, stop trying to talk and impress. And I'm bad at this. Stop trying to impress white people with how intelligent you are, or how intelligent you think you are. Stop seeking validation in your conversation and seek information. And that's something that I need to do. I'm really bad at not talking and doing more listening. So,
I mean, most of the conversations that I hear, it's about trying to impress the person. But a black person, talking to them, you already look at them and they're stupid. So ain't no point in trying to impress them, because even if they are impressed, you basically feel like that's a intellectual midget anyway. So the next level is find some white person to, impress with your skills of language. Everybody's trying to impress everybody else with their languages. As black people, that you don't count that as a reward if a black person is impressed. So you try to find somebody white or some non-white person that that you feel like has risen to some type of level, Asian or Hispanic, or closer to white looking, whatever. So
validation.
Exactly.
Trying to get validation and prove that I'm not just an ordinary I'm as good, it's so self-defeating, because we assume that people don't know what we're doing, and that's doubly bad. People know when you're trying to impress them, and we're not the first ones to do it. So black people have been trying to prove their humanity for quite a long time, and it hasn't worked. So maybe we need to stop doing that.
Yeah, definitely, we need to stop. And kids don't, and the children, the children, they don't like it at all. They feel like you're bullying them, and they hate that. And you approach them and you're trying to impress them with your knowledge or whatever, they shut off. They shut off, and they see you as basically like a predator, some type of enemy, some type of parasite. They hate that, man. They just hate it. And your information could be constructive, but just coming at them in that type of way, show what you know to a child, man, that's the fastest way for them never to listen to anything you have to say again, to really like hate you. So yeah, we need to stop that. We need, like I said, we need to think about what we're doing, because we're making a lot of silly mistakes.
Well, maybe that code would give us some structure to our language and give us some structure to our thoughts. I mean, it would help anyway. So, and again, like we said earlier, all the contributions from the listeners is welcome. That my email is on the website. info@trojanhorse1.com. You guys know how to reach Gus. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions, shoot it. We gotta overcome this inertia. We got to do more than just listen. We got to participate. And I'm speaking to myself as well. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm doing even half of what I should be doing. But I'm saying that I think the more that we do, the more we're able to do. It's kind of empowering when you feel like you're contributing. You start to feel more validated, and you start to feel more powerful. So it's really not just for the people that you're helping, it's for yourself too.
Oh, yeah.
God knows we need all the validation we can get. I'm telling you. I mean, from each other. The right kind of validation. Self-validation and black validation. We really need to get more of that going.
I know young Chad is waiting in the wings, but I let him speak.
I'll tell you all what I'm. I've had so many personal jokes during this program, for a variety of reasons. I will share this one though. I will spill the beans on what I found so funny this time. And young Chad. Oh, okay. Am I still? Oh, am I being heard? Am I being heard?
Yes, but you're breaking up. It's that echo sound again. Okay. Where you come in and then you go out, like you're on a speakerphone or something.
Okay. I'll wait 1 second. All right. Am I still breaking up now?
Nope.
Okay. I'll see if I can go quickly then. I'll share the quick joke. I have a 30-second sound clip as to why I was chuckling. I have concerns about seeking validation from other victims of white supremacy. Let's see if I can. Oh, it might be. Oh, yes, it is short. Okay, yeah, it's 35 seconds. All right, this is my 35-second clip. Why I was chuckling, and again, this is all around. I guess concerns I have around getting validation from other victims of white supremacy.
The most impotent creature in the form of a person on this planet is a black male. Period. No matter where on the planet they are. The most powerless person is a black male. The most powerless person on the planet in the form of a person is a black male person.
Neely Fuller's 8th visit. I guess my concerns, and it's not a guess, my concerns, I'm reminded of nothing of a man. I don't really know what the value is on another black person, another victim of white supremacy, them valid. I don't even know how it's possible for a victim of white supremacy to validate you. I'm a big proponent of self-validation, and I think for victims of, at least for me, the best validation would be ending white supremacy. Like, man, that would correct everything. I would have no other concerns about validation if we could do that. I wouldn't be concerned about anybody validating me. I would feel validated. All that would be taken care of. If 909, if you can hang tight, I'll get Non Mighty Wick and Young Chad. Or I think it's 3 people. The other 3 people that dialed in, I'll get them as well. Non Mighty Wick. Non Mighty Wick, your line should be open.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought it was a real good point that the caller from New York made about early in the program in regards to just the imagery that children could be exposed to that you might not be aware of. Like I think you mentioned catalogs or whatnot. I was just going to mention a few more things like junk mail, like the advertisements that come in the mail. we get saturated left and right with imagery that if no one is explaining those things to children, it just reinforces that white people are supposed to be in charge and non-white people are supposed to play a supportive role to that. And so, cereal boxes, you pay attention to some of the pictures on there when they'll put children on there, stickers, textbooks. I mean, just be imaginative or just try to take a look at whatever your children may see. So, rap videos, I don't watch that much TV, but the videos I have seen, they still seem to kind of push a message that lighter people are more preferred, at least in the female, being female. So that was it. Thanks.
Those images, I would agree with that. Any images that come in your house, television, magazines, catalogs, whatever, however they get there. Even books. I think I saw some books and they had just different pictures of white people on them. Those images are powerful. Definitely want to be on your toes about that stuff because it does have a huge impact. And the videos, of course. I don't want. Yeah. Excellent point with the videos as well. Let's see. Was that it, Non-Mighty Way?
Yes, sir. That's all for now. Thanks.
Okay. Person that dialed in last 4 digits, 1760. 1760. Did you have a question?
Greetings to you, Gus. How are you today?
Intensely victimized. How are you? 404?
Yes, it is. Hello to all of the COWS listeners. Pam, how are you tonight?
Oh, great. How are you? Good to hear from you.
I was trying by all means not to miss your show when I saw in advance that you were going to be on tonight. I said I have to make sure that I'm in to hear your show, and of course enjoyed it 909 and all of the others. Greetings to you. Is Justice on the line? Hello? Are you still there?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't think Justice is here.
Oh, what happened to everyone? Did they disappear?
The volume is low. I don't know if it's the system or...
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, because I don't know what's going on with your show, Gus, because I turned on the computer and I was listening to your show, and all of a sudden, I don't know if it was just me, if the other callers online, it switched to another program and I was no longer hearing the cows. So I had to boot my computer down, turn everything down, bring it back up in order for me to hear your show. So I don't know if anyone else who is listening on the computer, if they also experience that same problem.
But, thank you for telling me. That is good to know.
Yeah, because I was listening, all of a sudden it switched from you to another. It sounds like one of those type of old-time radio programs that start coming across. And I'm saying, this can't be the cow, so I just kept clicking it again, and it still kept doing it. So I had to boot the computer down and bring it back up. So I guess people, whenever Pam comes on, you bring all of these moles that follow you whenever they know you're on the show.
Technical difficulties.
Yes, because they know it's going to be something very constructive. But I am glad to hear. Just came back in from the store, and as you were speaking, I read into a non-white female, of course, married to a white person, and all of the things that Pam, you said, that we tend to do to ourselves. She had in the colored contacts, the fake hair, the fake nails, and everything else to disfigure herself to look like a European, and she was with this white male who I'm assuming was her husband, because I looked at her hands and she had on wedding rings and he had on also a wedding band on his fingers. So these are the type of things that we are seeing that, okay, if you wanted a black female, why do you have to try and make yourself into a European if you feel that he was with you because of your blackness? And I don't know if you addressed this previously in your call, but it seems to me very strange that she's trying to imitate a European and she's a black female in order to maintain his relationship with this white male.
Yeah. In my experience, whether they've got the dreadlocks or they've got the color contact lenses, I don't believe, in my opinion, that a white male would be with a black female who wasn't white identified. Because try to imagine yourself married to a white man, or imagine somebody like me married to a white man. It wouldn't work. So I think some people have better, what you would call camouflage, the dreadlocks and the African garb and the talking black and sleeping white kind of persona. But whether she's wearing color contact lenses or dashiki, it's still brain trashed, still brain trashing. And if you talk to a person like that long enough, you'll see that they've been brain trashed. She just happens to wear it on her, on her sleeve, literally, But he wouldn't be with her if she wasn't white identified, I don't believe. I just make that assumption. Maybe that's not fair, but I haven't met a black person married to a white person, particularly a black female married to a white male who wasn't white identified. I just haven't met that animal.
I quite agree. That's quite true. Gus, I don't know if you ever heard of this individual. Maybe 909, you might have heard of him. He comes out from the L.A. area. His name is Coach Alfred Powell.
No, ma'am. I haven't heard of him.
Yeah, he wrote this book. It's called The Inside of the Hip Hop, and he really broke it down. He was on a radio show in Atlanta last week, and so all of the symbolisms and everything that he has said, perhaps you might want to get him on the show, because he's for a non-white black male. He seems to be very well versed in the system of racism, white supremacy, and he gave a lot of symbolism, like for the hip-hop generation versus what the Klan. For instance, he spoke of the white T-shirts with the symbolism of the white robes the Klan wear that black males are wearing now, the grabbing of the crotch area, and the image of the castration of the black male. And he was so on point when he was breaking all of this stuff down that these black males are doing that the Klan no longer have to do to them because they're imitating them down to a T. So perhaps you might see if you could look him up. His name is Coach Alfred Powell. He's been on the scene for a very long time from what I've heard out in the L.A. South Central area. And he has been talking quite a lot about the hip-hop and what the destruction and what it's doing to the black community. So perhaps you might see if you could get him on the show for a future show.
Colonel, is it Alfred Powell?
Yes, his name is, Alfred Powell is his name. Okay. Coach Alfred Powell.
Coach Alfred Powell. Coach Alfred Powell. Okay. I will do some searching, see if I can track him down, Mr. Powell.
Yes. For the book, let's see if I can pull up the name of that book.
Do you mind if I get another caller while you're searching?
Yeah, it's called The Hypocrisy of Hip Hop. What I'll do, I'll send you I'll just email it to you, the show, so you could listen to it for yourself and decide if this is someone you might be interested in having on your show, and that way you can go ahead and contact him.
I would appreciate it. You have my, never mind.
Yeah, I have your email. I'll send it to you so you can listen to the whole podcast.
I appreciate it.
Okay. You can go ahead and get to the next call. I'll mute myself.
Right on. Your line is still open. Demery 4, you had a question. Young Chad, hang tight. If you're listening to the program, if you could turn the, I guess if you're listening on your computer. Okay, I don't hear now. Demery 4, if you had a question, your line is open.
Yes, greetings, Pam. Greetings, Gus.
Good evening, sir.
Oh.
Good to hear from you again, Pam. First thing I wanted to say was that I agree with the United independent white supremacy code.
Okay.
That seems to be more precise. And also, I wanted to comment about the reasons for having a code. You mentioned that white people's reason for having a code is to maintain white supremacy. And I think that black people, had a code also, but their reason was not to anger or upset white people. White people don't like being proven wrong or challenged to any degree. I think black people have had a code, but like I said before, I think it was mostly not to anger white people. But one of the things that I feel black people do concerning codes that they probably should take a look at is when black people remind white people that what they are supposed to do, when they're doing something that breaks the white code. I don't know if that's clear, but I've seen black people actually tell white people, you're going to get in trouble doing that. Don't do this or that. I think that's counterproductive.
Oh, you said black people telling them that? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. That's weird.
I can, what brought it to my attention, and I wanted to speak on this just briefly, but I think that when you are going to see a movie or some type of presentation and you're going to look at it from an analytical standpoint, like I did when I went to see The Help, I think it could be constructive. There was one scene in there when the one character was pretty outspoken, and she had gotten fired by her employer and kind of blackballed, so she couldn't find work. But one white lady who wasn't fitting in to their societal clique hired her, but she was from a different area of the United States, so for some reason her mindset was different. And she broke code, eating with her, being her friend, not practicing racism towards her. And the black maid started to correct her on not to do that. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. And I've seen instances of this, in my life, where they think that they're helping white people by telling them, no, don't do this, don't do that. So if some white person wants to break a code and assist you in some type of way, like you or Gus spoke of earlier, even in the form of business, why would that not be okay? Why can't we accept, that? I mean, everything is happening to us in a negative sense. We should be able to accept something like that without, feeling like that, somebody will have some repercussions behind it, which we know that does happen. But one other thing that I wanted to mention was when you mentioned the unified white code, where they don't snitch on other white people, and they have code words, and they don't give up unnecessary information. I was just thinking that, as a code for black people, we could just flip that and use that ourselves. Don't snitch on other black people. Use code words when we're talking to each other, and don't give up any unnecessary information. Like Gus was saying, a 7-to-1 ratio of asking questions.
Yeah,
I think that, this has been a very constructive show, and I've learned a lot, and I gave other people a chance to call in before I put a hand up because I wanted to learn more, but that was my comment, and I'll just listen to what you have to say about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I agree with you. I think we can learn a lot from studying their code, and some of the things could apply to us. Some may not because they're in a different situation, but yeah, definitely we could take a lot of pages out of their code book.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
I hope I didn't jump in on anybody. I was just going to comment on what the male caller was just talking about. I guess from the way I interpret it, some of that behavior you mentioned and that non-white people do, and I think originally you were saying about black people having a code at one point. I think that's more like black people's behavior, and for most of what we do is a response from being niggerized or going through a process of how to behave or how to respond to keep white supremacy going. So, if we were doing things like trying not to get white people upset or trying to make them more comfortable, I don't think that's that's not a natural way to behave. They had to do a lot of damage to get us to function that way. And as far as the white code or the racist code and white people breaking it, I think Jean Elliott was mentioned earlier in this broadcast. When she's been on the couch before, and I believe she said something about white people are not brave. They're not courageous for doing things like speaking out against racism or helping a non-white person or something like that. They can do that and maintain white supremacy. That's not in the way I interpret it, that's not them going against the grain or going against white supremacy. They've just incorporated that in how they're going to do their practice of it. So, for a white person, I'm trying to think of an example or something. But say if I'm trying to get to the door and I'm holding a bunch of stuff in my hands, and a white person hold the door open for me, or they, on purpose gave me an extra $20 for change or something. I don't think this white person is breaking the racist code. They just decided to do that at that time.
Excuse me, caller. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if it's the volume of the set, but I could hardly hear you. I mean, it sounded like you were saying some really interesting things, but I couldn't catch most of it.
Maybe, can you hear me better now, or is it still the same?
A little better.
I'll try to maybe sum up again what I was saying. I was just commenting on black people having a code, and I'm thinking that's more like a response to being victimized, from going through a process of being niggerized. And then so one of the main functions of a nigger, I would say, is to keep white people comfortable and not upset them. I think that's happened as a result of being damaged for as long as we've been in contact with them, them being white people. And then I was saying as far as white people having a code and them breaking it, breaking their racist code, I think Jane Elliott was mentioned earlier in this broadcast. And I know when she was on the C.O.W.S program some time ago, she had mentioned that white people are not brave. They're not courageous for saying things like white supremacy is incorrect or racism needs to stop or, giving a black person an extra $20 or something. They're not breaking their racist code for doing these things, because they figure out a way, because they could do these things and maintain white supremacy at the same time. I'm just saying I feel like they've incorporated that behavior in the way they practice the business of white supremacy. It's not them going against the grain, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. They don't really pay a heavy price. They're always going to be treated better than a non-white person who does a lot less work. Does a lot less, and they know it. And the thing is, the refinement. I think it's a thing that non-white people have to be aware of. Is like like as Demi was talking about the movie The Help and how they portrayed the maid as not being racist. I mean, not the maid, the white female as not being racist because she sat down and ate with her. That's refinement. There's no way in the world that white female didn't know that it didn't take away from her status to do that. Yes, some white people might have got upset and slapped her on the hand, but she wasn't going to be penalized. She wasn't going to pay a price for that because she was only going to go so far anyway. What I'd like to see is the help made with white women cleaning black women's houses, and I'd like to see how much white people would enjoy that movie. That's the movie I want to see. And if they thought that it should deserve an Academy Award with black women sitting back while white women clean their houses. And I bet you right away white people would see, that's uncode-like. That's not correct. White people know what they're doing, and they know what they're, I don't care what their behavior says. I don't care how liberal they appear to be. I don't care what many books they write. They know the difference between black and white, and they don't want to make any trades. So
I had my third private joke, Pam. I had my third private joke.
You got to share this one now. You can hold out on this.
I was saying they could make that film. They could make that film where the white people are cleaning up houses for black females. It's just, it would not be a comedy. It would be a horror film.
That's right. Right, exactly. Nobody would be laughing. And the white people in the audience, can you imagine seeing their faces? Oh, man, they'd be ticked. So
yeah,
I would just say to black, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it would be like Gus said, a horror film, but they could do it. They could do it as a historical piece. They can show how when the Moors went to Spain or went to Europe, how they enslaved them white people.
Mm-hmm. Have they ever made a movie like that to show white people being enslaved by black people? I don't remember ever seeing a movie like that even.
White Man's Burden.
Oh yeah, and you know what? You can hardly find it. You can hardly find that movie, either online or I had a friend had to send me a bootleg copy because I couldn't find it. So it doesn't look like they want that movie circulating too much. I don't know. Maybe I just looked for it at the wrong time. But I had a hard time. I couldn't get it from a video store or nothing. Not from Amazon. Couldn't get it.
A lot of the so-called science fiction movies that white people make, where it's futuristic, a lot of those, particularly a lot of the novels, have settings like that, where white supremacy has ended, and non-white people, like Daryl Bain, some of the stuff that he wrote, White Odyssey, where the non-white people are taking over and raping white women, Planet of the Apes, dare I say.
Yeah. I still want to see that movie. If anybody wants to contribute some money, let's make that movie.
I was going to say black people would be
the lighter
right
side
then.
of help. Huh? I'm sorry.
Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I wondered if anyone had heard, I don't know how many of you follow or listen to hip-hop, but there's a new record by Jay-Z and Kanye West, and the album is called Watch the Throne. And in one of the verses on the album, Kanye West says, "I'm going to raise my son as a Republican so everybody knows that he loves white people." Mm-hmm. And I heard a young person rapping it, which made me, go and listen to the song online. And I thought that was really interesting that he put that line, I'm raised my son as a Republican so everybody knows he loves white people. And then there's also a thing with 50 Cent. In the beginning of one of his songs, he says, he's giving accolades to Eminem, and he's like, you're my favorite white boy. And I just wondered if anyone on the call noticed how out of the way a lot of black artists go to, give these accolades to white performers who are so-called in their genre. If anyone had noticed that. I mean, by way of, like, endorsing them with, like, for instance, Usher with the Justin Bieber. And, you know, it just seems almost like black performers bend over backwards to, you know, endorse white performers even within their own genre. You know, Robin Thicke, they call it Blue-Eyed Soul and all of this. And he seems to get more accolades than what a black singer would do for doing the same sort of music.
I agree with the caller.
So when the caller or earlier said about, you know, maybe we should, you know, be open and accepting of when a white person breaks rank, if you will, to expose some of their code. It made me cautious because a lot of us get very excited when we think that we're seeing a white person exhibiting what we perceive to be as John Brown tendencies. And I worry about that. I'm concerned about it.
If I can be heard, can I say something? Hello?
We can hear you. Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Oh, I do apologize. I have to agree with because I had a discussion over about a week or so ago with some colleagues of mine. I made the same comment to them about it seems that we are always so pleased, just like with Tina Marie and all of these white people, when they master something that is done by black people, everyone just fall out of their chairs in so amazement that, oh, this person could do these things. But you would never see them doing the same thing because someone mentioned about Jada Pinkett. She had a heavy metal group, and whenever she tried to perform, they would always boo her. She never got the accolades as any other heavy metal group because she's black. You would find that we all tend to go overboard with white people and make an exception, just pretty much give them everything that you have in order to welcome them into the club. Because we can see with our music, and I mentioned this before, that if you turn on the radio station now on the jazz channel, you don't hear any black. You don't hear the Grover Washingtons and John Coltrane and all of the black artists being played. You're hearing all of these white artists like Kenny G, David Sanborn, and all of these white artists, instrumentalists. They are playing them. They're getting full play. And not the black artists are being given any props. So we are turning over what we have to these white artists, and we are feeling so proud when we teach them to dance and to sing, and we're not realizing how we're giving away our trade. Because they're not going to hire you once these people could master these skills. They no longer need you. All these white boys are going to get all of the gigs, and the Japanese now, because it's a big thing overseas. Jazz is really big in Japan, Korea, in those Asian countries. They're also picking up on the genre.
I want to make sure we save time to get young Chad in because he called and waited patiently to get a question in. I did want to make sure I pointed out that same trend that the male victim mentioned about black people giving a lot of accolades and praise to racists who are in their same field. The most repugnant example of this, in my opinion, Timothy, don't drink the Kool-Aid, wise. Young Chad, thank you for your patience. Did you have a question or a comment, young Chad? For folks who don't know, Chad is a frequent poster on the COWS Facebook page. He's very popular over there. Young Chad, your line should be open.
Yes, sir. This is Chad. How you doing?
Intensely victimized.
Okay. I actually wanted to share something about codifying. And I love what you said about the help, and I also love what you said about just trying to know how you whites and what they do. They can help you and still be racist and stuff like that. But what I have seen in talking to some white people I talked to was that they keep telling me that there's a system of elitism. They keep saying there's going to be a war, but they say vividly that it won't be a race war. So with that information in mind, I would have to say maybe I need to come up with my code so I can prepare for this. What do you think about that? Hello?
If you're convinced of it, I mean, that's codification to prepare for what you've perceived with your five senses and what you thought to, that's what codification is.
Yeah.
If you're convinced, then you need to do something, you need to behave accordingly.
Am I correct in saying you said that there's going to be a war or be a war?
They keep saying there's going to be a war, but not a race war. There's going to be uprising in America.
But there already is a war.
Yeah, I know, exactly. There already is a war. But they said there's going to be like a...
So is there going to be a different type of war?
Basically, that's
they're going to stop having the race war and have a different type of war? I'm not clear on that.
A different type of war. There's going to be uprisings, riots, crap like that. That's what they keep saying.
Like a civil war?
Basically.
Like an economic breakdown or something?
I mean, I guess you could say, that's what I keep saying. Since people are getting angrier and angrier by the day, it's like people are getting tired of it. And he said young people will also be in this uprising. So basically, I think riots are going to happen. I think it's going to be similar to Britain. And I think...
I think that sounds like a refinement strategy because it keeps our focus on an impending war so that we can't focus on the war that is actually going on right now.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean now, okay.
Yeah, trying to make it colorless. I feel
yeah,
like
exactly. That's what I was saying. I mean, I knew it wasn't colorless because I could see what he was trying to say when he said there's elitist systems. He's basically saying there's a white system of racism, white supremacy. So,
I've had a lot of people try to distract you, derail your focus from race to class. But in all reality, yeah, there's a class system here, but nothing's more dominant and more powerful than the white supremacy system. So, and the white people that are saying this, they know that. They know even if there's riots in the street and people are fed up, they know that race is still going to be the number one factor in what happens to black people, regardless of the economy, regardless of class, regardless of everything. They know that. I just consider those kind of comments refinement, and I consider that practicing racism when they say things that I suspect they know are not really true, not completely true. I think that's just another form of practicing racism, to confuse their victims.
I want to get in a quick question. Because we're at the 3-hour mark, and I want to give Pam an opportunity to say anything before she wraps. I want to throw out a question to folks on the line, and this is just my limited knowledge of like sci-fi novels. I think some of you all are familiar with Derek Bell and his work, Faces at the Bottom of the Well. The short story Space Traders, where white people give the black people away, right? I think at least some of y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Yes, yes. Some people listening, yes, no, yes. Some of y'all have heard this, right? Yeah, Space Traders.
Cosmic Slop.
Yes, they made a television program. That Cosmic Slop was based on a short story by Derek Bell, a black male. Okay, Cosmic Slop, at least some of the people listening, they know Cosmic Slop, right? Dang. It's on YouTube. You should watch it. It's interesting. I guess if there are a lot of people listening that don't know, it's a sci-fi short story. The gist of it is that aliens come to Earth and they say, we will clean up your pollution, we'll give you a lot of gold, we will hook your planet up if you give us the black people. And white people take like a week to make a decision. I think it's a time limit on it or something. They prove that they have the technology, like they clean up all the pollution in New York or something really, impressive. And eventually white people make the deal, and they give the aliens the black people. That is Derek Bell's short story, Space Traders. Ray Bradbury, who wrote Fahrenheit 451, book about burning books, he also wrote a short story where black people leave Earth. The difference is that in his short story, the white people at first pretend like, they don't care, they're really happy about all this, whatever, but when it gets to the come down, they are furious about black people leaving. I mean, really, to the point where they actually begin trying to stop black people from leaving. Which one do you think is more accurate? Because I don't think this is an either or. I think you're at pretty opposite ends of the spectrum. Which one of those do you think is more accurate? White people would be really glad to see us go. White people would be furious to see black people leave.
I vote number 2.
Had to go.
Furious.
You're gonna see a what's that? You're gonna see a lot of white people feeling both ways. I think the question would be, are you trying to see like which one will end up being the result? Like, which meaning the most powerful white people, what would they decide? Or are you just saying, white people in general?
In general, like, do
you
think?
Talk up a little louder. Sorry.
Me or the person who was just speaking?
The caller.
Oh, okay.
Hardly hear the caller.
Okay. To answer the caller, he just said, non-mighty wick, he said, did I mean in general or the most powerful white people? I guess you can take it, however, whatever you think would be most accurate. If you think there would be a consensus, like if you think the majority of white people would go a particular way, if you think the most powerful white people would go one way, however you think it would play out.
It probably would be a mixture of both, as you said, because don't forget they still need us for body parts. So they're not going to want us all to just disappear because we are their survival when it comes to things that they're going to need. Since they are a mutant, a hybrid of us, they are not going to want to just get rid of all of us like that.
I got a question. Did they get rid of all? Are the black people the only non-white people on the planet? Or are there not other non-white people left after black people are gone?
Both of these stories, they do not address. Oh, wait a minute! On the program, in Derek Bell's short story, and Derek Bell is a black person, right? In his story, the aliens give like a precise amount of melanin that you have to have. Like, this is the cutoff point. This is what we're defining as black. You have point melanin, and up to this point, you're black, and anything, I guess, if you don't have that much, then you're not black. So they were very precise about it. The Ray Bradbury short story, I believe Ray Bradbury is a white person. I don't think they are as specific about classifications and all that, but they do not make any mention of other non-white people. It's just black people, and both of these stories are located to just this area of the world, the United States.
I say they'd be furious. I think they consider us their property, their plaything, their sexual toilets, their punching bags, their whipping boys, their doormats, and also other things like our genetics, our creativity, all the things that they don't give us credit for, that they seem to be somewhat psychologically dependent on. So I would say that they would be furious. They don't want to lose us. They don't want as many of us. They might be looking to get rid of quite a few of us, but they don't want us all of them. How would they have their jungle fever fetishes and the Mandingo clubs and stuff? They don't want us to go anywhere. Not all of us.
What about the beige
I would agree.
As the caller that called
the movie The Legend of Nigger Charlie with Fred Williamson earlier today. I watched it again, and in the movie, Nigger Charlie, who is Fred Williamson, is granted his so-called freedom by the plantation owner, and he's supposedly an uppity Negro because he's a blacksmith, and the guy who's taking over the plantation really hates him, and you would think that this guy would be relieved that he's got his freedom and he can finally be off the plantation. But what he does is he tears up his letter of freedom and tries to rape his woman. So I think that they would be absolutely furious because they would no longer have any scapegoats. They would not have anyone to teach them how to dance. They would not have anyone to sing and rap for them, and they would absolutely be furious. In fact, I think that they would experience mass aneurysms.
We need to leave then. But I agree with you. I think they're just like the abused woman syndrome. You know, the spouse. Let's say it's just a man, the husband that beats the woman, and then when she tries to leave, he makes her feel worthless. He puts her down. He trashes her. He rapes her. Whatever, this and that. But when she tries to leave, he tries to kill her. I think they have such a sick relationship with black people, period, that goes beyond any other relationship they have with any other non-white group. I think there's a very, very sick, psychotic bond that white people have with black people, maybe because they know who we are, maybe because they know where we came from, maybe because we represent everything that they're not, you know. But for some reason they got a case on us, and they are not going to let their victims go any more than that abusive husband is willing to let that wife walk out the door. He's going to harass her. He's going to stalk her. He's going to kill her because he can't stand to lose this object that he's put all his faults and shortcomings on. You know, if he doesn't have her to put them on, then he has to look in the mirror and see who he really is. And that's what I think white people's relationship is to us. They put all their dirty laundry in our basket, and now they told themselves that they're clean. But without us being in that basket, they have to look at their dirty laundry, and they don't want to do that. So I think they'd be furious if we let
This is 909, and I think that I take the opposite position. I just want to put that out there. I mean, you know, for the record, because you did ask the question.
What I was going to ask Gus is, if you're saying leaving, what about the beige population, as your caller that wrote Death of Black America, where he said they're going to be a very large so-called beige population or mixed population? They will have some of our genetics mixed in, so they might not be as furious because now here they have their buffer group that can be the victim that they can victimize on.
But see, what good is the buffer group without the people who are below the buffer? You only have a buffer group because you have people that you need. In other words, what would be the use of a non-white person with a white parent if there were no non-white, black people to make them feel inferior?
They have the so-called Latinos and the Arabs and the others out there.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the same relationship. I think there's something very peculiar and very, very sick about the relationship that Caucasians have with black and African people. I think it's much more intense. I think perhaps we represent the genetic annihilation that Dr. Welsing talks about. I don't know. Or maybe we're the first people and they're the newcomers, like in Planet of the Apes. You know, they revealed a lot about how they felt about themselves in comparison to the whichever were the group it was, the apes or the humans. So I think there's something peculiar and very sick between African and black people and white people that other non-white groups don't experience to the same degree.
This might be a question to ask Dr. Welsing when she appears on the show next week to get her take to see what she might have to say.
And Mr. Fuller.
Yeah.
And Mr. Fuller.
Yeah.
I think that they would let the black people bon voyage.
Really?
I think they would be furious, but I think if they were going to be logical and they would have to sit down and discuss what does it mean to have the black people off the planet, that the decision would be that they got to go, that they would have to go ahead, take them, because we are the threat. And if you're going to be logical, and if Dr. Wellesley, I can't predict what she was going to say, but if it's genetic, if it's the fear of genetic annihilation, and you can get rid of that, just black people being that the main threat, you know, as far as genetics go, the DNA and all of that, man, of course, man.
But the thing is, it's all due respect, it's so twisted that their genetics. If the genetic annihilation, I don't think it's as simple as, okay, if they stop having sex with black people, no genetic annihilation danger. No, they need to breed with people with melanin because they are dying out. So I think they're caught in a trick bag of not wanting, not wanting to, just hating black people and needing black people. I think they're in a trick bag. I think there was a professor, I can't think of, somebody named Hamilton that you talked about, Gus, who made a statement. And he said that, I think you asked him, Gus, what would happen if non-white people refused to have sex with white people. And this white professor said we would react with violence because our gene pool is so small. We're only 8% of the world's population that if we only bred with each other, we die out. So white people need, they're using black and brown bodies as a genetic laboratory to save their race. So they really do have a need for us genetically, but at the same time, they don't want to be wiped out. And I believe that's why the system of white supremacy is going strong, is they have to dominate us, but they still would die out if they only bred with each other. So them eliminating us from the world's population would not solve their white extinction problem. Their white extinction problem is inherent in their defective genetics.
Hang tight.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
Hang tight, good folks. We're a bit over the 3-hour mark. I want to make sure Pam has the opportunity to give her final commentary. If you give me a day, I think I could give you a prediction on what Dr. Welsing would say in response to that question. I'm very confident that I can give you an accurate response to what Mr. Fuller would say to that question about white people and how they would feel about black people leaving the planet. Very confident that I think he would say white people would not support that at all. If white people wanted to be rid of black people, they could have been rid of us a long time ago. That's not what they want. They want us here. They want us to be mistreated forever. They have no interest in shipping us out to wash their hands. That is the last thing that white people want to do, and they could have done that a long time ago. And I can hear the question Mr. Fuller would ask. If white people decided today that they were going to kill every black person in this area of the world, who would defend us? And the silence would just hang, and he would say, there you go. That's why. And he would say, no, I don't think they would, not at all. They want us here forever. If they didn't want us here, we would have been gone a long time ago. And that reminded me, just pointing out little things I was thinking. I've heard people say no finance, no romance, no finance. Obviously, that is not true for black people because our financial situation has been horrific for about the last 500 years, and we're still here. So obviously, that is not true for black people, that no finance and romance. And I mean, really, I think everybody on this call, if we're telling the truth, looking back, black people have been struggling financially in this area of the world forever, correct? Okay, just pointing that out. That obviously is not true for black people. Pam, if you want to give out some final thoughts on the program, codification, if you have any other codification strategies or anything you would like to share before we get ready to wrap things up.
The only thing I'd like to share is I'd like to see some of the listeners who want to participate, shoot me an email. Let me know what you think about the codification. If you have any suggestions for the codification, contact me, contact Gus. The other thing is I want to remind us about Marcus Garvey. He tried to get black people to leave, and they prevented that. I mean, some black people were ready to go back to Africa. They didn't want that. So, no, they don't want us to, I don't agree. They don't want us to go anywhere. Why would you want your victims to go anywhere? Why would you want that abused wife to go anywhere? You enjoy what you do. That's your entertainment. That's your psychological drug. So no, they don't want their crack cocaine to go anywhere.
They went through all that trouble to bring us here. Sorry.
Right. And to keep us dominated and subjective to them. I mean, this is an addiction that they have now. Other than that, I would just say, we have the book should be out in about 2 weeks. It's called The Interracial Con Game. And you can go to our website, TrojanHorse1.com, and read up a little bit on what is going to be in it. And like I said, anybody have any kind of suggestions? Anybody that's read the books, I hope you can leave a review. Either you can email me a review or leave it on Amazon. So that's pretty much all I had to say was, just that announcement.
Right on. Sir Anton, always listening in and supportive. I'll make sure to get the address for the Constructive Concepts T-shirts, cafepress.com/Constructive Concepts. One more time, cafepress.com/Constructive Concepts. If you want to get information, the books, Black Love is a Revolutionary Act, Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation, information about the upcoming books. They have, I think, information for all 5 of the books on the website, material that is soon to be released. TrojanHorse1.com should be linked in the description. Click it, TrojanHorse1.com. Always a pleasure to have Pam on the program. And again, tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow the program is at 9 p.m. Eastern, so it's an hour later start. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific. And actually, if I have the book close enough, I will read a quick snippet just to give an idea of what to expect tomorrow. The blackout is over. We'll have a white person on the program tomorrow, suspected racist Danielle McGuire, and her book, At the Dark End of the Street, the ritualistic rape of black females, and really black people in general, because she has a lot of information on just the total sexual molestation of black people, children, males, females. Racist man and racist woman know no bounds with their abuse. But tune in for that broadcast tomorrow. And this Sunday, Dr. Welsing and Mr. Fuller will be on the program, so-called 9/11. Now it's, I think, what they call Patriots Day. Dr. Welsing and Mr. Fuller will be here this Sunday. Tune in, should be constructive. If you give me 2 seconds, I will grab the book and give us a snippet of tomorrow's broadcast before we conclude. 2 seconds, and I'll grab the book here. All right, let's see. Which part? I am have about 30 more pages to go in the book, so I'm still getting information. Wow. I'm just gonna. I'm actually even thinking about doing a reading party. Not a reading party. Just a brief read session. I'll actually take a vote right now. I'm probably going to finish reading this book within the next couple hours. If I decide tomorrow before the broadcast, sometime during the day tomorrow, to just read a little bit from this book, would you all be interested in hearing, or me just doing a recording? That way it'll be online. Even if you can't tune in live, then you can hear, I don't know, maybe a half hour or so of the book. Is that something you all think would be constructive to the people that are on the line?
Fine with me.
Yeah, that sounds constructive.
Hearing yeses. Okay. I will. I will likely do it. I won't say definite. I will likely do it. Tomorrow I'll read. We'll do like 30 minutes and just read, so you'll get an idea. Because I think this is vital information. I mean, it's incredibly graphic, disgusting, and it should be, and infuriating. But I think it's important to know. And again, it is context. So when Interracial Con Game comes out, or anyone else, talks about, hey, this sex with white people, we are very serious about this. No jokes, very serious. This is one where we're drawing the line. No sex with white people, you'll have a better understanding of why that is. This is Danielle L. McGuire at the dark end of the street. There's some sections of this where I was just like, my God, I don't even know what to say. Wow. And I will say also, before I get started, this book is filled with those contradictions where you have white people. Even Strom Thurmond pops up in here where Strom Thurmond and other racists are out yelling, we do not want these heathen niggers raping our daughters and sleeping with us and miscegenation, yeah. And then you turn around 5 minutes later, they are out raping a 12-year-old black female. This is rife with these contradictions, and you'll see them if you study racism, white supremacy. That is a pattern that is repeated over and over and over. And I would add that to the folder as to why I say I don't think they would be very pleased about black people exiting the planet. I'm going to start on page 130. It was like all of us had been raped. That's the title of the chapter. On May 2nd, 1959, 4 white men in Tallahassee made a pact, as one of their friends testified in court later, to go out and get a nigger girl, in quotes, and have an all-night party. They armed themselves with shotguns and switchblades and crept up behind a car parked alongside a lonely stand of scrub pines and blackjack oaks near Jake Gaither Park. When they reached the car, Patrick Scarborough pressed his 16-gauge shotgun against the driver's nose and ordered Richard Brown and his companions out. Dressed in formal gowns and tuxedos, the 4 African Americans reluctantly stepped out of the car. All were students at Florida A&M University, where R&B crooner Roy Hamilton had sent a capacity audience into musical bliss at the Orange and Green Ball that night. Scarborough forced the 2 black men to kneel while his friend David Beagles held the 2 black women at knife point. When Betty Jean Owens began to cry, Beagles slapped her and told her to shut up or she would never get back home. Waving his gun, Scarborough ordered Richard Brown and his friend Thomas Butterfield back into the car and told them to leave. As Brown and Butterfield moved toward the car and then slowly drove away, Edna Richardson broke free and ran to the nearby park, leaving Betty Jean Owens alone with their attackers. Beagles pressed the switchblade to Owens' throat and said, "We'll let you go if you do what we want," then forced her to her knees, slapped her as she sobbed, pushed her into the back seat of their blue Chevrolet, and drove to the edge of town, where he and his friends raped her 7 times. When the 4 armed white men in Tallahassee forced Thomas Butterfield and Richard Brown to drive away, leaving Betty Jean Owens at the mercy of their assailants, the 2 black freshmen drove around the corner and waited as the blue Chevrolet disappeared down the street. Brown and Butterfield hurried back to the scene. Edna Richardson, the black woman who was able to get away, saw her friends from her hiding spot, called out to them, and then ran to the car, hoping to save Owens. The FAMU students rushed to the local police station to report the crime. Similar situations in other southern towns had often left African Americans without police aid. Although the Tallahassee police were not known for repression and brutality, they were hardly friendly towards African Americans, who made up nearly 40% of the city's population. Frank Stoudemire, the chief of police, was a genial, if temperamental man who sold eggs out of the trunk of his patrol car to blacks and whites and often ignored violations of the county's ban on liquor. Russell Anderson, a minister at FAMU, remembered that Stoudemire stayed in power by playing the races against each other. He would act like he was a friend of the blacks when he was around them, Anderson said, but he let it be definitely known that he was a white man's man. In 1937, for example, investigators implicated Stoudemire, then the Leon County Sheriff, in a gruesome double lynching. Police arrested Richard Ponder and Ernest Hawkins, two black teenagers, for robbing a downtown business and threatening an officer with a knife. They were in the county jail no more than a few hours when four men with paper bags over their heads kidnapped the youths at gunpoint. They drove them 3 miles outside of the town and riddled their bodies with bullets, then left the scene littered with hand-painted signs warning blacks to stay in your place. Only Stoudemire and the police chief knew who held the keys to the county jail, but the investigation was quickly shelved. By the time Stoudemire became the chief in 1953, he relied more on threats than on violence, but his policemen never hesitated to enforce white supremacy. They issued bogus tickets when it served their own interests and sent detectives to spy on and infiltrate black organizations and harassed African Americans relentlessly. Stoudemire and his officers were off the night Betty Jean Owens was attacked. The officer on duty in Florida's capital city that evening was Joe D. Cook, Jr., an energetic 19-year-old intern from Tallahassee who was majoring in criminology at Florida State, the all-white local university. Much to the surprise of the 3 black students, he called for backup and eagerly agreed to look for Owens and her assailants. After a lengthy search, one of the students finally spotted the blue Chevrolet and shouted, "That's it." It was just after 4 a.m. Deputy Cook turned on his flashers and drove alongside the car. Attempting to escape, the kidnappers led Cook twisting and turning through the dark, tree-lined streets of Tallahassee at speeds up to 100 miles per hour. One of the white men suggested dumping the nigger, but William Collinsworth, a 24-year-old married telephone lineman, said, "We can't now, he's on our tail." Finally, Collinsworth pulled his car to the curb, grabbed his shotgun, and got out of the car. The young deputy drew his pistol and ordered all 4 to line up against the car, or, he threatened, "I will shoot to kill." As they waited for assistance from Cook's supervisor, they heard muffled screams coming from the car. Richard Brown and Deputy Cook peered through the rear window and saw Betty Jean Owens bound and gagged, lying on the back seat floorboards. Brown tried to help her out of the car, but as her feet touched the ground, she collapsed. Cook drove Betty Jean Owens and her friends to the local colored hospital, while Deputy Sheriff W.W. Slappy arrested the 4 white men and drove to the jailhouse. Laughing and joking on the way to the police station, the 4 white men apparently did not take their arrest seriously, nor think they had done anything wrong. Collinsworth, for example, worried less about the charges against him than about the safety of his car. Deputy Sheriff Slappy revealed his disgust when he handed the men over to Sheriff Raymond Hamlin, Jr. "They all admitted it," Slappy said. "They didn't say why they did it, and that's all I'm going to say about this dirty business." William Collinsworth, Ollie Stoudemire, the 16-year-old cousin of Police Chief Frank Stoudemire, Patrick Scarborough, and David Beagles, whom the Pittsburgh Courier called the element which sports duckbill haircuts, confessed in writing to abducting Owens at gunpoint and having sexual relations with her. When Sheriff Hamlin asked the men to look over their statements and make any necessary corrections, Beagles, a high school senior and part-time service station attendant, smiled and bent over the table. He made one minor adjustment before he and his friends were hustled off to jail. If the four white men did not take their arrests seriously, students at FAMU, a historically black university that anchored middle-class black life in Tallahassee, did. Many of them were veterans of the Tallahassee bus boycott in 1956, a Montgomery-inspired campaign that highlighted both students' preference for direct action and their willingness to rally behind the protection of black womanhood rather than the plodding litigation favored by the NAACP. White authorities had charged Carrie Patterson and Wilhelmina Jakes, roommates at FAMU, with inciting a riot after they refused to move to the colored section of a city bus on May 26, 1956. As in Montgomery, when the women who fueled the boycott fought for their dignity of their personhood, they were real upset, Jakes said later, that bus drivers were treating us like criminals, like we weren't human beings. A burning cross on the front lawn of their home baptized them into the struggle and galvanized the black community into action. A student-led boycott forced the city bus company to shut down 5 months faster than the boycott in Montgomery. Despite economic intimidation, constant police harassment, and violence, African Americans stayed off the buses. At a mass meeting in June, C.K. Steele, a Baptist minister who helped lead the boycott, said blacks would rather walk in dignity than ride in humiliation. Steele had preached at Hall Street Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama during the 1940s when Reese Taylor and Gertrude Perkins' cases of rape shook up the ministers and mobilized community action. He arrived in Tallahassee in 1952 and quickly became a community leader. Steele's experience in Montgomery and strong relationship with civil rights advocates in Florida throughout the South made him a natural mentor for the FAMU students. Without the students, he insisted there would be no movement. They are the militants. They're your soldiers. The buses were finally integrated in the spring of 1957, 2 years before the four white men armed themselves to kidnap and rape Betty Jean Owens. When FAMU students heard of the attack on Owens and the subsequent arrest of four white men, a small group planned an armed march to City Hall to let city officials know that they were willing to protect black womanhood the same way whites protected white womanhood, with guns. Mainstream student leaders persuaded them that an armed march was the wrong thing to do and patched together a unity demonstration only 12 hours after Betty Jean Owens was admitted to the local colored hospital. As the four white men sat in jail, 1,500 students filled Lee Auditorium, where Clifford Taylor, president of FAMU's Student Government Association, said he would not sit idly by and see our sisters, wives, and mothers desecrated. Using language white men in power could understand, student leaders professed their belief in the dignity, respect, and protection of womanhood and announced they would petition the governor and other authorities for a speedy and impartial trial. Early the next day, more than 1,000 students gathered in the university's grassy quadrangle with signs, hymns, and prayers aimed at the national news media, which sent out stories of the attack across the country. The students planned to show Tallahassee and the rest of the nation that white men could no longer attack black women without consequence. Student protesters held signs that declared, "It could have been your sister, wife, or mother." Some students linked the attack in Tallahassee to larger issues related to the black freedom struggle. 2 students held up a poster depicting scenes from Little Rock, Arkansas that read, "My God, How much more of this can we take? It was the deeply personal issue of rape, however, that gave the students their focus. Patricia Stevens Dew, a Miami native and student at FAMU, remembered feeling helpless and unsafe. We all felt violated, male and female, she recalled. It was like all of us had been raped. Student leader Buford Gibson, speaking to a crowd, universalized, "You must remember, it wasn't just one Negro girl that was raped. It was all of Negro womanhood in the South." By using Betty Jean Owens as a black every woman, Gibson challenged male students to rise up in protest and then placed the protection of black womanhood in their hands. Unlike white men who historically used protection of white womanhood to inspire mob violence, Gibson's speech inspired students at Florida A&M to maintain their nonviolent demonstration. At about the same time, white men in Poplarville, Mississippi, used the protection of womanhood as justification for the lynching of Charles Parker, a black man who was charged with kidnapping and rape of a 24-year-old white woman who could barely identify him in a police lineup. 2 days before his trial, a group of 8 to 10 white men obtained keys to Parker's unguarded jail cell, savagely beat him, and then dragged him screaming down 3 flights of stairs. FBI agents located Parker's bloated body floating in the Pearl River on May 4th, 1959, just 2 days after 4 white men gang-raped Betty Jean Owens. The Parker lynching cast a shadow over Tallahassee, brutally reminding the black community that white women's bodies were off limits, while the bodies of black women were fair game. The accelerating media coverage, student-led protests, and a threat to boycott classes at Florida A&M forced Circuit Judge W. May Walker, a white-haired former firefighter, to call members of the grand jury into a special session in Tallahassee on May 6, 1959. More than 200 black spectators, mostly students, squeezed into the segregated balcony at the Leon County Courthouse to catch a glimpse of Betty Jean Owens and her attackers before they retreated into the secret hearing. Still undergoing hospital treatment for injuries inflicted during the attack and for severe depression, Owens was accompanied to the courthouse by a nurse, the hospital administrator, and her mother. Gasps and moans sounded from the balcony when, after 2 hours behind closed doors, Collinsworth, Beagles, Scarborough, and Ollie Stoudemire emerged and calmly faced the judge. When they all pleaded innocent, making a jury trial mandatory, African Americans roared with disapproval. Dr. M.C. Williams, a local banker, a local black leader, shouted, "4 colored men would be dead if the situation had been reversed. It looks like an open and shut case." Defense attorneys for Collinsworth and Scarborough argued for a delay, insisting that the public excitement threatened a fair trial. But Judge Walker ignored their objections. For the first time in Florida history, a judge sent the white defendants charged with raping an African American woman back to jail to await their trial. Echoing the sentiments of the people around him, a young boy traced, "We want justice," in the dust on the railing of the segregated balcony. Justice was the last thing the black community expected. In the 34 years since Florida began sending convicted rapists to the electric chair instead of the gallows, the state had electrocuted 37 African Americans charged with raping white women. Before this, Florida had led the country in per capita lynchings, surpassing notoriously violent states like Mississippi, Georgia, and Louisiana. From 1900 to 1930, white Floridians lynched 281 people, 256 of whom were African American. Throughout its history, Florida had never executed or lynched a white man for raping a black woman. Florida's violent history included the Little Scottsboro case involving Samuel Shepard, Walter Irvin, and Charles Greenlee, black men accused of raping a white woman in Groveland, Florida in 1949. After the U.S. Supreme Court overturned their guilty verdicts in 1951, Sheriff Willis McCall picked up Shepard and Irvin from a Rayford State Prison to transfer them back to the county. On the way there, McCall pulled to the side of the road and asked the two handcuffed men to change the tire, then shot them both in the chest. "I got rid of them," he told his boss over the radio. "Killed the sons of bitches." Walter Irvin survived the shooting, but Samuel Shepard died that day. In Tallahassee, memories of the Little Scottsboro case hung over the African American community in 1954 when the state electrocuted Abraham Beard, a 17-year-old black youth accused of raping a white woman. Apart from the race of the accused, the Beard case featured an almost identical case of characters as the Tallahassee case 4 years later. An all-white jury had tried and convicted Beard in the same courtroom where Betty Jean Owens faced her attackers. Judge W. May Walker presided and William D. Hopkins served as the state prosecutor. Harry Michaels, Patrick Scarborough's attorney in 1959, served as Beard's court-appointed attorney in 1954. Both the Little Scottsboro and the Beard cases revealed the extent to which the protection of white womanhood served as the ultimate symbol of white male power and the foundation of white supremacy. When African Americans in Tallahassee demanded equal justice for Betty Jean Owens, that foundation began to crumble. News that 4 white men would actually face prosecution for raping a black woman plunged both whites and blacks into largely unfamiliar territory. It not only highlighted the bitter ironies of segregation and social equality, but allowed African Americans to make political use of them. According to the Pittsburgh Courier, the rape case is the worst headache the Dixiecrats have ever suffered. All of their arguments for white supremacy, racial discrimination, and segregation fall by the wayside, the Courier argued, and the arguments against school desegregation seem childishly futile. Time and again, another newspaper editor argued, Southern spokesmen have protested that they oppose integration in schools only because it foreshadows a total mingling of the races. The implication is that the Negroes are hell-bent for intimacy, while whites shrink back in horror. Perhaps, the writer argued, as Lillian Smith and other maverick Southerners have suggested, it is not quite that simple. While prominent members of Tallahassee's conservative white community expressed their shock and horror at the rape, they continue to stumble into old narratives about race and sex. The indictment helped incite age-old fears of miscegenation and stereotypes of the black beast rapist. The historian William H. Schaff argues that merely evoking the image of miscegenation could often suffice to ring the alarm bells that would mobilize a solid phalanx of white resistance to change. Wow, there are quite a few folks still listening. I wanted to read a bit more because she actually gives some of the information from the trial, which is quite astounding. To hear I mean, you want to talk about trifling, to hear how some of these white people behave in the trial and the way that they speak to the victim. But I'm thinking I will read tomorrow. I know it's getting late for people on the East Coast. I'm thinking I'll tune in and read some tomorrow. I think I think the information is highly constructive. I'll tune in tomorrow. I'll see, Pam, if you're still there, if you have any thoughts. I know, as I said, this issue you are very much concerned with. If you have any thoughts, if you want to share before we close out, feel free.
Trashy, trifling, and terroristic. That's all I got to say.
Indeed. We will be back tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific. Just check the TalkShoe page. I know there's a ton of difficulties. Thank you, 404, for letting me know. People have reported there are just daily difficulties where people say they can't access the TalkShoe page. They can't. I have the same problems. I assume white people are on their job. And multiple people have said that they check other programs on TalkShoe and they don't have all of these issues. So I assume white people, racist man, racist woman, they're on their job. But we just check the program page and you'll see if we do the read tomorrow, it'll just be about 30, 45 minutes just to read so you all can hear more from the book to prepare for the program. The address, TrojanHorse1.com. Always a pleasure to hear from Pam. We hope to have her back real soon, and the cows will be back tomorrow. That would be Tuesday, September 6th. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately.